Hey, I'm Dr. Patrick Jones from the Homegrown Herbalist School of Botanical Medicine. And 'tis the season, right? 'Tis the season to be jolly, and 'tis the season to feel really lousy a lot, right? Why is that? Well, it's because we're eating a lot of garbage in November and December. And, you know, we can be good all year. And then in November and December, we give ourselves a pass and we eat wonderful things, right? I mean, how do you not eat some of that wonderful stuff that mom makes and grandma makes? And anyway, lots of sugars, lots of frostings, lots of simple carbohydrates, lots of fatty foods, and great abundance of all of the above, though we wouldn't usually eat in those quantities. But heck, it's the holidays, right? What are you going to do? But as a result, we feel really lousy. And the reason is that our systems and our body is all gorked up and full of toxins and full of metabolic wastes and full of free radicals and all kinds of things that we don't need. And so, as a result, January is often a time of year when people start talking about doing a cleanse. Yes, a cleanse, a body cleanse to make us healthy. And that's a great idea. Herbal cleanses are something we used to always do, right? We would come out of the cabin at the end of the winter, or the teepee or the cave or whatever we lived in, and we're surrounded by plants that had very powerful and beneficial cleansing actions, right? And they were more abundant in the spring. Well, I've done a couple of videos on herbal cleansing, and I'll put the links down in the description of this video. One of us is just a webinar on herbal cleanses, and it goes into a lot of detail. The other one is called How Not to Cleanse, which is also a good thing to understand, because there are some horrific, monumentally stupid things that people do to cleanse their bodies, to cleanse their internal organs. Well, guess what, guys? We're not cleansing, like scrubbing out our innards. What we really need to be doing is feeding and nourishing and stimulating and tonifying the organs and systems that eliminate toxins. That's what we need to be doing. And it shouldn't be a traumatic event. We shouldn't spend a couple hours curled up on the bathroom floor in the fetal position wishing we were dead because we're doing a cleanse. That's not cleansing. That's torture is what that is. And it's bad for you. It's a bad idea. Don't do it. There's other ways to do it that are so minimally noticeable and pleasant and nourishing. You know, let me just tell you something else. We have a historic announcement. I just finished yet another book. This is the Homegrown Herbalist Guide to Herbal Cleansing and Supportive Therapies. Okay, and think about that, supportive therapies. That's what we really want to do. We really want to give the body what it needs so that it can do the things it does, right? And one of those big things it does is eliminating toxins. So anyway, that's the book. You can pick that up at homegrownherbalist.net. And I'll tell you what, if you buy a copy before January 15th of 2024, I'll autograph it for you, all right? So not only will it have words with good penmanship, but it will also have my signature. And we do have a team of specialists here to spell check and make sure I write my name, I spell my name correctly. There's no guarantee you'll be able to read it. That would require a much more expensive team. Anyway, swing by and grab one of those at homegrownherbalist.net. You know, there's so much misinformation, so much really potentially harmful and bad and uncomfortable and miserable information out there. You don't need any of that. What you need is the astoundingly nutritious and beneficial and tonifying plants that the good Lord made for us so that we could get through the winter and survive the holidays, right? So let's get started. And if you have questions, poke them in here and we'll try to answer them at the end. But I'm Dr. Patrick Jones, if you didn't know that. And I'm the founder of the Homegrown Herbalist School of Botanical Medicine. Okay. And you can read more about that at homegrownherbalist.net. That's our website. We also have herb supplements there. We have single herbs. We have formulas. I don't know. There's a lot of, I don't know how many formulas are. How many formulas are there, Evan? 88. Evan knows stuff like that. Anyway, that we've developed over the years. And it's not just me. I mean, we have people in the background. My daughter, Lucy, is the general manager. She's a naturopath. My wife, Lori, just retired as a midwife. So now she's on board full-time creating content and doing amazing stuff for us. She's also a naturopath. And anyway, they're just, I mean, so many amazing people supporting what we're trying to do here. And I'm just grateful for all of them. So yeah, swing by homegrownherbalist.net. And we're going to have a little chat. We're going to chat about herbal cleanses. All right. And I'm going to give this chat in a loving way because I love you. But there are some things going on with cleansing that are not ideal. Okay. And I would guess that there's people that'll watch this video and say, well, I did that and I felt a little better, or I do that to my clients all the time. And, you know, everybody has to make their own decisions. But there are some principles of cleansing that are very prominent that I have real concerns about, and I'm going to share those concerns. Okay. And so let's get to it. So this is how to cleanse, and more importantly, how not to. All right. So in the good old days, things were pretty simple, right? I mean, we ate things and things ate us. And everything we ate was completely organic and all natural. You know, I mean, the guys 1,000 years ago were much more enlightened than we are. They didn't have any GMOs or food additives or anything. They were everything they ate was made by conscientious organic farmers. And we got more exercise, right? Because a lot of things we ate, we had to chase them or catch them or kill them. And a lot of things that wanted to eat us would chase us. And so there's a lot of good aerobic activity. So things were good. Also, the nature of the world, and believe it or not, it's still the nature of the world, we're just ignoring it, was set in place to give us a good cleanse every spring. You're right. And so in the winter, we'd spend all winter, you know, in our hut or our cabin or our cave or our yurt or whatever we lived in. And we would eat a lot of starches and fats and proteins because that's all you can get in the winter in most of the world, right? Unless you're lucky enough to be a guy in Jamaica. But if you were anywhere in Europe or North America, chances are pretty good you were indoors eating starches, fats, and proteins all winter because that's all that was available. And then we would come out in the spring, and what do we have? Lo and behold, the world is full of greenery, and it's full of all these amazing greens and flowers and plants and fruits and vegetables. And they were chock full of nutrients, but they were also chock full of fiber, and they were full of, you know, phytochemicals that stimulated and supported our livers and our kidneys and our guts and our everything. And that's what there was to eat. And so we ate a lot of that, right? And it cleaned out all those fats and starches and gunk that we accumulated over the winter. We got all cleansed every spring, right? And that was great. These days, things are a little different, right? We don't live in caves. Our diet is not dictated by the weather, right? So we can eat way too many fats and carbs and proteins all year, right? We can drive through and get whatever we want at the burger joint anytime we want. And we can also get fruits and vegetables any time of year. You know, you can go to Costco and get stuff from who knows where they're growing it, Chile or somewhere, and it's, you know, good fresh produce any time of year. And so there's opportunities on both sides. Most of us, even those of us who know better, sometimes lean a little bit toward the yummy fat and protein and simple carb side when we shouldn't. And unfortunately, you know, there's the old saying, you are what you eat, right? And so, you know, you look at this poor fellow, and I'm a little concerned that if I skinned a lot of us, we might look a little like this guy. But, you know, it's not just the food either. I mean, there's all kinds of chemicals and dyes and preservatives and stuff in our food that is just not food. You know, I mean, if you look at the typical food label in the grocery store, uh, most of the stuff on that label you've never heard of. Half of it you can't pronounce, and most of it's not food. I had a great conversation with Michael Tierra, really a great herbalist. And this was really a long time ago. It was before I was much of an herbalist. But I had a mother-in-law that was very, very ill, and we called Michael Tierra and did a consult with Michael Tierra for her. And one of the things he said, and I don't know if it was originally something he said or if he was quoting someone else, I can't remember what it was, but it really struck me. It was very humorous and very true. And he said, the best way to be safe is to avoid the middle of the grocery store. Just stay on the edges, stay on the edges. Don't go in the middle. There's no food in the middle of the grocery store. It's really true. All the produce and the meat and the veggies are on, and maybe some good bread is on the outskirts, on the outside of the grocery store. And in the middle is all the processed, food-like substances. But anyway, that's always stuck with me. But a lot of even our produce, but especially anything that's in a can or a bag in the middle of the grocery store, has got so much stuff in it to make it look good for a long time on the shelf, that it's really not very nutritious or good for us anymore. All right. And forget the grocery store. I mean, step outside and take a whiff. We live here in Idaho, in the boondocks of Idaho, and, the air is pretty good. But we were down in Salt Lake last week, and Sandy, all along the Wasatch Front driving, and the air was horrible. I mean, you almost couldn't see the mountains. They were having a terrible temperature inversion. So Utah, the populated part of Utah, which is the Wasatch Front, right along the Rocky Mountains, it's like a bowl. And sometimes the temperatures flip and they get these inversions. And there's a lot of large urban areas, Salt Lake City and Ogden, and, those are big cities. And there's a lot of exhaust and manufacturing and pollutants. And I mean, when they get those temperature inversions, it's just horrible. And we drove into the valley and we're like, oh my word, how do people breathe in and out down here? And our eyes burned and our throats were sore. And we're like, holy cow, this is horrible. And then that night it rained and rained and rained. And the next morning it was glorious. And I thought, oh, this is why people live in Utah. Because when you can see the mountains, they're beautiful. If we can get the brown haze washed out, it's really beautiful. And the folks are great. They're great people. But there's a lot of car exhaust and pollutants in the air. And I mean, forget that. Half the chemicals you're using in your house are bad for you, and your skin can absorb a lot of that stuff, lotions and soaps. And I mean, every single thing you put on your skin these days is full of chemicals to make it smell wonderful or do fun things, or be a good preservative and not get stinky in the bottle. I mean, it's all very artificial. And so there's a lot of insults to our body internally from our foods, through our respiratory tracts, through our skin. And it's a problem. So what do you do? Well, you can do a cleanse, right? We can do things to compensate for the stress. And, we could have a whole nother lecture on what the stress is doing to us in this modern world. But we can do a cleanse. All right. And what should a cleanse do? Right. That's the first question. What's really the purpose? Well, the real purpose is that you should be returning your organs, your body systems to their natural, normal function. And how do you do that? Well, you do that by giving them natural, normal nutrients and foods and herbs that are conducive to that natural condition. Okay. You eliminate stuff that isn't food and stuff that's poison, and you feed yourself what your body needs. I've always said one of the mantras of my naturopath practice is if you give the body what it needs, it'll fix itself. I mean, we talk about us being great healers and, I mean, I love to help people. I love to bless people and try and make them feel better, but I'm not the one doing the healing. It's their body. I heard a definition, and again, I can't remember who said this either, but it was a great quote. He said, a great healer is a person that gets better really fast. That's the healer. The guy getting better is the healer. Our own body is the healer. And so, a good cleanse should never make the organs or the systems of the body do things it doesn't do naturally. They just shouldn't. You know, excesses and extremes are really rarely beneficial to the body. All right. And that's the problem with most of them, excesses and extremes and unnatural things. And so that's what we're going to talk about a little bit. Okay. Okay. So what about all those great cleanses that are on the internet? Right. So there's all kinds of them. There's all kinds of internet things. And we've been looking at them this week. And a lot of them, and I'm telling you, as an herbalist, as a doctor, a naturopathic doctor, as a veterinarian, okay, and as a pretty good harmonica player, I know stuff, all right? And the biology of what's happening and what these cleanses are doing is often offering zero benefit to the body. Nothing. And some of them are downright dangerous, all right? So let's just talk about some general errors that we see, okay? One of the errors is intensity and discomfort, okay? There's no reason on earth for any cleanse to cause you any physical discomfort. You should be able to go about your daily life. You should be able to go to work. You shouldn't have to stay home for a week and curl up on the bathroom floor and wish you were dead for 12 hours to make your guts happy. All right, you shouldn't have to do that. You should be able to go about your daily life, your daily activities. Nobody should know you're cleansing, including you. All right. And if that's not the case, then something wrong is happening in your body. All right. Also, high frequency. A lot of, in addition to the over intense, issues and the discomfort issues, some people just cleanse too often. And some people promoting cleanses say that you should do them more often than you should. Okay. Honestly, and I sell a cleanse kit. All right. And I never tell anybody that they need to do it more than once or twice a year. I mean, I should tell everybody to do it once a month to make a lot of money, right? But you shouldn't do it once a month. And I got to tell you, in my naturopath practice, I've seen a lot of cases of sweet, wonderful, wonderful people trying really hard to be healthy, and they have some condition that's serious and hard for them, and they're cleansing every month. They're doing juice cleanses, they're doing oil cleanses, they're doing this, they're doing that. I read this one on the internet. I do this one, on odd months, and I do this one on even months. And I'm looking at them and seeing the negative effects of that frequency on their bodies and on their health. Okay. A lot of them are starving to death because they're doing cleanses that restrict this or restrict that, and it's not the way it's supposed to be. Do it once a year, maybe twice a year. Okay. But these weekly or monthly things they can lead to all sorts of unintended consequences and problems. The other error with herbal cleanses is they do them in the wrong order. Okay. It's very, very important if you're going to cleanse the liver, and we'll talk about that in a minute, because even that idea is sort of a wrong idea. Okay. But if you're going to cleanse the liver, if you're going to flush the liver out and increase liver production and support the liver's normal function, which is to make more bile and flush junk out, you better have a clean small intestine and you better have a clean large intestine. All right. Because if those organs are all gorked up and sad and mad and you dump all kinds of junk from the liver into them, well, now they're really sad and mad. Right. And so you have to go sort of bottoms up when you're doing cleansing. Okay. You start with the colon and then you do the small intestine. And when they're happy, do the liver. All right. If you do it the other way around, you cause more problems and you dump more toxins in. And the purpose of the colon, the large intestine, its primary purpose is to reabsorb fluid from the stool. Okay. That's the main reason you have a colon. And it's also very, very good at reabsorbing toxins from the stool. All right. And so what you want is nice, regular, frequent bowel movements. That's a good idea. So stuff's not laying around there. Right. But you also don't want an excess of toxins. So if you're already, bound up and constipated and gorked up because you're not eating enough fiber and you haven't cleaned your colon out a little bit, and you dump a lot more toxins in, well, guess where the toxins are going? They're not going out the window. They're going right back into your bloodstream, right? So don't do it backwards. You got to do it the right way. Start with the colon, then small intestine, and then liver, okay? Otherwise, you're just putting more stress on an already stressed system. Okay, let's talk about some more red flags. All right, just things that if you're reading about a cleanse or something, if you see these red flags, run. Okay, there's a lot of them that are really dangerous. You know, these detoxifying things and these cleanses, and we're not going to cover all of them. I mean, this is a very short little presentation we're doing. I mean, we could spend hours and hours and hours talking about why this one's bad and why that one's bad. But mostly, I just want to give you some principles. Okay. So first of all, anything that offers a quick fix, you know, that's probably a bad idea. If it's so extreme that they recommend preliminary steps to prepare you for this big thing that's going to happen, that's a bad idea. If there's a rehab after the cleanse, that's probably a bad idea. Okay. Anything that is intense enough that you have to do anything restorative and rehabilitatory to your body afterwards, that might have been more intense than it needed to be. If it requires a significant decrease in calories, don't do it. If it has you eliminate entire food groups, don't do it. Okay. And sometimes, I'll put a little caveat on that one. Sometimes, in fact, the only time that I do any dietary restriction is if I'm managing a leaky gut condition and trying to heal a leaky gut condition. I will have folks do some restrictions on some dietary things, but I'm not saying don't eat any meat and don't eat any vegetables and don't eat any solids, right? I'm just saying don't eat things you know you're allergic to, don't eat things you know you have problems, don't eat processed foods. You know, there's things I tell them not to do. And if I'm doing a candida protocol on somebody, I'll tell them to quit eating sugar and simple carbs, okay? But I'm not telling them to quit eating. Yeah, don't quit eating, and don't avoid all proteins from animals, and don't avoid all, you know, whatever else they tell you to avoid. I mean, that's not a part of a healthy protocol, okay? What else? Okay, don't put stress on your body. Any kind of a prolonged elevated stress levels are probably worse for you than whatever toxins they think they're getting out. Okay. And also, if they tell you to not exercise and not, you know, just to abstain from daily activities because you'll be too weak to do it. Wow. Okay, that's a red flag. All right. Also, they'll often list symptoms and things that you can expect. So if they tell you you're going to have lightheadedness or loss of balance or extreme hunger or fatigue or anxiety and depression or insomnia or lethargy or headaches or back pain or diarrhea or severe cramping or constipation or nausea, if they tell you those things are normal as part of the procedure, that's a red flag. I mean, every one of those things are things people to come to me as a naturopath to fix, right? We don't want to stress the body. We don't want to stress the body out. That's not helping anything, all right? So if it's beating you up, if the cleanse is beating you up, you probably ought not to be doing it, okay? All right. Are you brave enough to look at some examples? These are all common things that are commonly done. All right. We went on the internet and looked around and found, and you know, there's dozens of each of these, you know, but we're just going to look at a couple just as examples. All right. Of some of the things that are being taught and promoted that aren't correct. All right. So first of all, let's look at olive oil cleanses. Okay. So this is a really popular thing, and and there's various ways to do it. And, you know, I mean, and there's things, but they almost always involve drinking a lot of olive oil and a lot of citrus juice, usually lemon juice. Okay. Um, and they also usually involve a lot of fasting, right? So they say drink a lot of olive oil and citrus juice and then don't eat anything, for a couple of days. And they almost always involve potent laxative herbs. Okay. Um, which of those things is natural? Which one of those things would happen in nature? When in nature would a mammal have access to a large volume of olive oil? When in nature would an animal or a human, a mammal, take significant repeated doses of a purgative laxative herb? I mean, if you have to do something like that to get your gut to move at all, that's a problem, right? So what are the promises? Well, they say you'll lose a lot of weight quickly. They say it eliminates toxins. They say it gets rid of gallstones. That would be good. They say it cleanses the liver. It increases energy and vitality, and it removes debris from the brain. What? Okay. I don't know how they're doing the last one. And maybe they're putting the olive oil in their ear. I'm not sure. Anyway, let's talk about some of these things, should we? First of all, it doesn't do those things. Okay. It doesn't eliminate toxins. The liver doesn't store toxins. All right. It doesn't store toxins. So why do I talk about liver cleanses? I even talk about liver cleanses. We're not cleansing the liver. We're using the liver to cleanse the blood. Okay. And so if somebody says you need to take a lot of oil to clean out your liver, that's nonsense. It's not true. Okay. If you want to clean your blood in your body and have better metabolism and better nutrient usage and, get rid of drugs and stuff that you're eating faster, stimulate your liver. That's a good thing to do, right? But you do that with herbs, not olive oil. Okay. Anyway, also, they make a claim that they're removing gallstones. All right, well, let's talk about that a little bit in a minute. Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. First of all, these are the directions. And remember, this is what I'm telling you not to do. Okay, so don't print this and take it to your club and say, this is what Doc Jones said to do. It's what I said not to do. All right, these are typical directions. These actually came from an actual website. Okay, and I reworded them so I'm not plagiarizing or getting in trouble here. Okay, first thing in the morning on day one, step one, take 5 capsules of Cascara Sagrada and Chaparral on an empty stomach. Okay, just kill me now, okay? That's horrible. The bellyache you would get from that would be epic, number one. Number two, Cascara Sagrada is what I call the believer's herb, okay? Because if someone doesn't believe in herbs, I can give them a little Cascara Sagrada, and in 5 minutes, they'll be in the bathroom, and they'll believe in herbs all day, okay? It's a purgative. It's going to clean you out. Not like an aperient, which is another fun herbalist word. An aperient is a mild bulking laxative like psyllium or pumpkins or things with high fiber, right? They move things through, and that's great. A purgative is explosive, all right? So you don't go to work if you're taking a purgative, all right? You probably don't go to the living room if you're taking a purgative, all right? Okay, so you take your capsules and you wait an hour before proceeding to step two. And step two is to drink 16 ounces of olive oil mixed with 8 ounces of fresh squeezed lemon juice. Okay, you have to drink the whole thing in 30 minutes. Wow, that sounds good. That sounds fun. Step three, fast for 24 hours. Okay, so you've taken the herbs, you've taken nothing but oil and lemonade, lemon juice, and you're not going to eat anything else for 24 hours. Okay, and then for a week, you're only going to eat raw fruits and vegetables, and you're going to drink half a gallon of water every day. All right. No salt, no smoking, no coffee, no dairy, no meats, no dried foods or sugar. Now, I don't disagree with some of those. Some of those are good ideas. But continue taking the laxative herbal capsules twice a day. All right. So let's look at what happens when you do that. These are the normal side effects Okay, 24, and these were listed on the website. This isn't me saying, wagging my finger at you. This is the guy telling you to do this, all right? Expect 24 to 48 hours of diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, headaches, gas, fatigue, and dizziness. Okay, so what is your body telling you when it manifests those symptoms? Huh? It's telling you that something's very wrong, right? I don't have enough nutrition. Something horrible is happening to my guts, right? And I don't have any energy. Okay. But don't worry, they say, because this is your body's way of telling you that everything's good and you're getting rid of toxic waste. No, that's not what your body's telling you. All right? That's not what your body's telling you. What your body's telling you is it's not getting what it's needing, and that it's under a lot of stress because some really weird stuff got put into it. Okay? All right. So, does it work? Well, they say, please do examine your stool. And these are especially good for people that don't have a hobby or a life. Do examine your stool. You may notice a variety of green pea-like objects floating in the stool. They're gallstones, which is a form of cholesterol, which comes mostly from fried foods and saturated fat. Be very pleased, for this is your main goal. You may also notice a lot of mucus and parasites. Okay, that's an actual quote. Now, as alarming as this is to you, I can't imagine how alarming it would be to your dog. All right, so make sure his water bowl's full, please. All right, but I have to jump in here and give a photo credit. This is Jim McDonald, who's a great guy, a tremendous herbalist, and a very nice fellow. I've never met him personally, like where we were in the same room, but we've had some back and forth about things. Always been great and positive. He's a great guy. Anyway, he wrote a really good article about these olive oil cleanses on his website. And there's a link here. The reason I'm putting the link here is because I stole some of the pictures. All right. So thank you, Jim, for letting me steal the pictures. And I'm sending people to your website. Also, I stole this picture of him from the website. So he's like I say, a very good guy. And a more advanced herbalist than me, because he can pull off the long hair and the Birkenstocks, and I just never could do it. I don't like Birkenstocks, and I don't look good with the long hair. So he's a little more advanced. I'm hoping to get to that level. I got the beard thing going pretty good, so we're gaining on it. But anyway, Jim's a wonderful fellow. Go read that article if you want more depth on this. So here's the things, the gallstones they said you'll see in your toilet. Okay, this is an actual toilet. This square thing in the picture, that's the bottom of the toilet. See all the floating gallstones? Wow. And then you have these other ones over here that they've broken in half, and they broke this one in half, and they broke this one in half. Isn't that wonderful that you're getting all those gallstones out? Well, guess what, guys? It's time for a little reality check. And even though having a week of serious abdominal pain and starvation and digging furiously and feverishly through your stools sounds fun, it's time to kind of flesh out the truth. Okay, those objects are not gallstones, all right? And they didn't exist in your body until you did the cleanse, all right? They took a bunch of these gallstones to a lab to analyze what the heck they were, because guess what? The doctors had never seen them before. What the heck is that? It's not a gallstone, okay? And believe it or not, doctors have seen gallstones. I've seen gallstones. I've felt them in my little hands because I'm a surgeon. Okay? You can't break them apart like grapes. And they don't float. Okay? Anyway, they analyzed them and they said, this is the quote, they said, we concluded that these green stones resulted from the action of lipases and gastric enzymes and fluids on the oil, the olive oil, and the potassium in the lemonade, the lemon juice. Okay. So if you take enough oil and enough lemon juice and put them all in your guts at the same time, your guts freak out and your pancreas produces tons of enzymes to figure out what the heck is this stuff, right? Because your pancreas is the organ that gets rid of fats, and you just put 16 ounces of olive oil into your gut, right? So the pancreas gets all hyperexcited. And that enzymatic action and those two chemicals together make these cute little green marbles out of olive oil and lemon juice. Okay, it has nothing to do with your gallbladder or your liver. Okay, so this is what real gallstones look like, and this is actually real gallstones in a real gallbladder. Nice of someone to donate their gallbladder to give us this picture. But anyway, gallstones are rocks, right? They're made out of minerals, and they're really dense and they're really hard, and they don't float, and they don't dissolve in warm water like these other little guys. If you put them in hot water, they disappear. Okay. And they're made out of calcium and bilirubin and cholesterol and bile pigments, right? None of those things are found in the floaty balls that the oil cleanse is causing to be created. None of those things. Why? Because they've never been anywhere near your liver. Okay. That's why they don't have liver anything in them. All right. So, and I don't want to beat these guys up because they don't know. I mean, you see little round things, there must be gallstones, right? I'm not saying they're lying to us, but they're incorrect. All right. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about juice cleanses. These are also very, very popular. And, lots of celebrities are talking about their juice cleanse and their juice fast, and they get really skinny really fast doing the juice cleanse. It usually involves drinking copious amounts of fruit juice or vegetable juice sometimes, and abstaining from all other food. Also, they don't need any solid food at all, just juice. Okay. They typically last 3 to 10 days. And if you wanted to do just juice for a day, that'd probably be okay. Maybe, I don't know. I wouldn't do it for 10 days, But a lot of these guys we say 3 to 10 days, but you can do this for weeks. And I can't tell you how many of my clients have come into me physically devastated because they keep doing the juice cleanse and it doesn't work, right? The first time I did it, I felt pretty good after the first couple of days, and then I felt awful, but I thought I better keep doing it for another week. So I did, and I never did feel much better. And so I did it again 2 weeks later, horrible. Here's the promises they give you if you do a juice cleanse. Improved hydration, right? It gives your digestive system a rest. Well, I think it gives your digestive system some stress. Improved nutrition. That's not correct because you're eliminating a vast number of the nutrients your body needs. I mean, juice is great, but juice is this much of the things you need in your body, right? Increased energy, even though they tell you you'll be tired. So I'm not sure where that one comes from. Improved quality of sleep. That might be true because you're exhausted because you don't have enough nutrients. Reduced food cravings, reduced bloating, and improved mental clarity. Okay. So now let me tell you this. I think fasting short term can be a good thing. If you fast, for a day every month or two, I think that's a good thing for you. And if you have juice while you're fasting, great. That's great. Do that. Okay. But doing just the juice long term is a really bad idea. Okay. And fasting long term is a really bad idea. All right. All right. Here's a typical regimen that we got off a website. Again, we've changed all the words and, enough, not the meaning, but enough that we're not plagiarizing and getting ourselves in trouble here. Remember, this is something I want you not to do, not something I want you to do. It says down here in the bottom. Okay. So we're going to ease in and ease out. Remember I said that if there's a preparatory period and a rehab period, that it's probably a bad idea. Okay. So day 1, salads, soups, smoothies, and juices. Okay. I don't mind that. Day 2, soups, smoothies, and juices. Okay, we're missing some stuff there. Day 3, a liter of orange juice and put some maple syrup in it so you can have calories and energy. Okay. The 10-day diet. So we eased in. Now for 10 days, we're going to drink 6 to 12 cups of lemonade made with fresh lemons, cayenne, and maple syrup. Drink as much water as you want. This will help you not feel hungry. Don't exercise. You'll be too weak. And then after your 10 days of that fun, we have the ease out, where you drink a liter of orange juice on the first day of easing out. And day 2, you can have fruit and veggie juices. And day 3, you can have raw fruits and vegetables. And day 4, You can have your regular diet, and listen to this, but add lots of probiotics, because this diet wipes out all the bacteria, beneficial bacteria in your gut. I'm not making this up. That's what it said. Okay. And they are absolutely correct about that. I will give them kudos. Okay. Here's an important note again from the promoters of this. You will have to use a strong laxative every day to induce bowel movements, since you're not getting any fiber, and this diet has been proven to halt peristalsis. Peristalsis is your guts moving. So we're killing all the bacteria and we're halting peristalsis. So you have to take strong laxatives. And since you're taking strong laxatives essentially on an empty stomach that has nothing in it, and empty bowels that have nothing in it, they're just going to cramp like crazy so they can push nothing. That'll be comfy. 2 to 3 hours of intense cramping is to be expected. Really? I don't know why anyone thinks that's a good idea. But aren't fruits and vegetables good for you? Yeah, absolutely. Eat lots of fruits and vegetables, right? We don't need very much meat. We need a little bit, but we don't need very much. And we certainly don't need any simple carbs to speak of. You know, fruits and vegetables are fantastic. Most of your diet should be fruits and vegetables, but it's the fruit and the vegetable. It's not just the juice. Okay. It's the pulp. I mean, you can grind up 3 whole apples and make juice out of them, and it doesn't raise your blood sugar very much. But if you squeeze them and just get the juice, your blood sugar goes up a lot from the same critter, right? All that fiber and all that other stuff in there does important things. Okay. But yeah, they do. They contain a lot of vitamins, a lot of antioxidants, a lot of fiber, all kinds of things. They used to contain a lot of medicine until we bred all the medicine out of them. I've often said that if you took your kids in a time machine and went back to visit Henry VIII and had dinner with him, your kids would be begging you to come back to 2022 and eat their Brussels sprouts. Okay. Because the vegetables used to be way more bitter, but they had way more medicinal properties in the old days. We've bred all the good stuff out of a lot of them. Anyway, I'm not being anti-vegetable here, okay? But I am saying that it's very dangerous to just do the juice long term for some significant reasons, okay? So here's some of the problems with juice cleanses. First of all, it's not a complete source of nutrition. Okay, they don't have any fat in them. They don't have many proteins. They don't have any B12. There's a lot of vitamins they don't have in them. They have some. They have some of them. A lot of vitamin C sometimes, right? That's good. But there's no B12. There's no calcium in some of them. Some of them have a lot of calcium. If you drink spinach juice, that's calcium. Lemon juice isn't. But just having these extremes, of diet. If you just take juice, guess what your body does? Okay. It says, holy cow, there's no food. There's no food, everybody. Right? So the next time you eat anything, guess what your body does? Because it thought it was starving. Well, it goes into post-starvation mode. It goes into, holy cow, I better put everything into fat because I might starve again pretty soon. Who knows what's going to happen? Right? I thought everything was going great. And all of a sudden she quit poking food in the noise hole up there. And now we're starving to death. Right? Your guts and your enzymes and your metabolic processes don't have any eyes and brains. They don't know what's going on. They just know there's no food. And they're going to fix that for next time. They're going to be ready. And so you switch into that starvation mode, that starvation metabolism. And when you start eating, and you might lose some weight during the juice fast, you might certainly lose the weight, right? Because you're not getting any calories. But when you start eating again, your body's going to turn a lot more of that material into fat. Okay. Just to put it away for a rainy day. Okay. Just be well balanced. Just take things slow and gentle. And if you want to lose weight, that's fantastic. Eat a lot of vegetables. Cut back on simple carbs and cut back a little bit on fats. Not much. Mostly simple carbs. And you'll lose weight. Increase your output of exercise a little bit. That'd be great too. But doing these quick, instant fix weight loss things is typically a pretty bad idea, and your body will get even with you later. Okay. The other problem with extremes of diet and with juice cleanses particularly is that it can cause some pretty serious imbalances in your gut flora. The guy that was promoting this said it wipes out all your gut bugs. Well, how does it do that? Well, number one, it doesn't feed them anything because your gut bacteria feed almost exclusively on insoluble fiber. And there ain't any insoluble fiber whatsoever in a glass of juice. Okay. If you grind up the whole vegetable and drink it, that's fine. I like that. But that's not what these guys are doing. They're just having a very clear, clarified juice. Okay. And what that is basically is sugar water. All right. Fruit juice is composed of fructose, and those simple sugars are not what the beneficial bacteria in your gut want. So they're starving to death. And you're feeding the candida because she loves sugar. That's her favorite, right? So you're beating the heck out of the good guy bacteria that do so many important things. I mean, they regulate your immune system. They produce like a very high percentage of the serotonin, which is the chemical that makes your brain feel happy and like you can get through the day tomorrow. A lot of that's produced by the gut bugs. They manage all kinds of super important things. They help with digestion. They help with the immune system. They help with mental health. They help with all kinds of stuff. And we're going to wipe them out. We're going to starve them. That's a good idea. That's not a good idea. Okay. Also, the other thing that sugars do, simple sugars do, is they increase insulin. Well, what does that do? Well, insulin does two things. It drives sugar into fats. That's one thing it does. Okay. It drives it into all the cells, but eventually the cells say, well, we don't want that anymore. Give it to the fats. Now, if that's all you're getting is a glass of juice, the fats aren't getting any, right? Because everybody else is going to eat it. But the other thing about insulin that's bad is that insulin is very inflammatory. The cardiovascular disease that we have in first world countries is not because of the fats in our diet. It's because of the sugars. Okay. We eat a lot of simple sugars. And as far as your body's concerned, a piece of white bread and cotton candy are exactly the same thing, right? You can't tell the difference. They all get broken down into glucose. Okay. Glucose stimulates insulin because her job is to get things into the cells, right? That's what insulin does, get sugar into cells. But it's very inflammatory. Insulin is very inflammatory. And so you eat a lot of simple carbs, your insulin level goes up. And, now your coronary arteries are all inflamed and mad because they're inflamed because of the insulin. And your body says, oh, that looks sore. We better slap some cholesterol on it. And that's why you have a heart attack, right? They did studies on the Inuits up in Alaska, the Eskimos, and their blood fat levels were through the roof because they eat fat. And that's all they got, right? They're eating fish and whales and seals. And they don't have a garden in the backyard. Their diet is fats and proteins principally. And their serum cholesterols were super, super high. And they have almost no heart disease until they move to town and start eating Twinkies and Big Macs with white sugar and white flour. Then they get heart disease, right? Because the insulin caused the inflammation and they got plenty of fat in there to smooth things out and plug things up. So anyway, that's another problem with simple sugars and all juice diets. All right. So some of the negative side effects, and again, a lot of these are things they mention as normal for the process, but here's some of the things that happen, and they didn't mention all these. Constipation, right? Got to take lots of laxatives to get through this. Acid reflux, unstable blood sugars, dizziness, headaches, cravings, fatigue, malnutrition, muscle and bone loss. And the rest of these bottom ones are what the scientists are saying about it, okay? Diarrhea, they said that, and electrolyte imbalances. Juice cleanses, for most people, are, miserable and really not doing much good. For some people, they're very dangerous. If you're diabetic or if you have cardiovascular disease, don't even think about a juice cleanse. It's very dangerous. Okay. All right. Let's talk about colonics. All right. So colonics are usually performed by naturopathic doctors, right? Most of the people that are doing this are naturopaths.
And basically what they're doing is they're poking a hose in your caboose and flushing out your colon with really a lot of water. Okay. And they say these are the promises. They're flushing toxins out of the colon, which will boost immunity and enhance immune function. Now, is that true? Yeah, I think that's true. Because remember, getting hoarse here. It's weird for me to get horse. I was a dairy vet mostly. I mean, I did some horse work, but I ought to get cow, not horse. Anyway, would flushing your colon with water get rid of toxins? Absolutely. You bet it would. Okay. Because remember, and would that be beneficial overall? Yeah, that day it would be great, right? Because your colon wouldn't be able to reabsorb any toxins and you might flush out some junk that was gorking things up. Fine. All right. But is that a natural thing to do? Right? My perspective on everything, nutritional, medicinal, wellness wise, is how did God do it? Right? What was in the original owner's manual for how to take care of this body? And I guarantee you, it didn't have anything to do with poking hoses in places they don't belong. All right. So it does flush toxins, but it also, guess what else lives in your colon, on your large intestine? A lot of the beneficial bacteria. So again, we're impacting negatively beneficial bacteria populations. Okay, so that's a bad idea. A lot of people, here's some of the side effects people have. They have some abdominal cramping. They often have some diarrhea, some nausea, some vomiting, death, things like that. I think it's just a bad idea to combine biological plumbing and hardware plumbing. Okay. And the reason is not because I think, water in your colon is a devastating thing. And, if it was something that was done rarely, it probably wouldn't be that harmful, honestly. But the fact is that you can lacerate the bowel with the hose. You can perforate the bowel with the hose. Okay. And the guys doing this are not in a medical facility. They got their office in a back room somewhere and they're doing colonics. And, I would guess some of those guys are very careful and have a lot of experience and good for them. But if you do perforate the bowel, you can get peritonitis and be dead pretty quick. Right. So I don't know. Is it worth the risk? I don't think it's worth the risk at all. Okay. And frankly, I can think of a lot of ways to clean the colon out that make the bacteria in the colon deliriously happy and don't have any risk of bowel perforation. Why don't we do it that way? Right? Why don't we do things from the other end and not poke hoses in the back end? All right. There are some instances where you ought to get something poked in your caboose, but it's very rare. And it only probably ought to be done by a surgeon while you're under anesthesia. If he's looking for a colon tumor or something and needs to do a colonoscopy, or put some contrast media in there for an x-ray or something. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We're going to have a hose in our caboose. Other than that, I wouldn't do it. Okay. Okay. So let's just talk about some of the fundamentals of a good cleanse. And we do a whole, in the school, and we did a paid webinar here a while ago on cleanses, the good way to do a cleanse, the right way to do a cleanse. Okay. And it's 2 hours long. Okay. So we're not going to make you sit here for another 2 hours, but I'm going to just give you some basic principles. Okay. Some basic fundamentals. Okay. So first of all, what you want to do is you want to use natural, real foods, natural, real herbs in a natural, good, real balance. Okay, that's how you do a cleanse. You do it the way our ancestors did it when they wandered out of their cabin in April and got to work eating vegetables and weeds and flowers and plants. That's how you do it. Okay. Don't distress your organs. Don't do things that are painful and miserable and unnatural. They don't need that. That's not what they need. Okay. Don't limit real nutrients. Don't starve yourself for fats or proteins. Or fiber. Don't do it. That's a bad idea. Do things in the proper order. All right. And if you do it naturally with foods and herbs, that'll naturally happen. Okay. But if you're focusing on if you wanted to do some things to make your liver, do its job a little better, work a little harder and clean things out. And that's great. That's okay to do. Make sure your colon's cleaned out first. Okay. And there's ways to do that, mostly with fiber. That's mostly how you do it. Okay. And don't do it more than once or twice a year. There's no reason to do a cleanse more than once or twice a year. All right. And if you need it more often than that, something's really wrong. And let's figure out what that is. Okay. Your primary purpose and perspective should be to support those organs and to help them using herbs, using foods, help them do their normal job. That's what we want to do. We want to support them. Okay. And the other thing we can do with herbs, especially, is we can feed those organs and give them the resources they need to do that job. And in some cases, we can actually restore those organs. We can really not just help them do their job, but patch them up and heal them up. Okay, there's herbs like milk thistle and cleavers and chamomile that are liver restoratives. I mean, they don't just make the liver work harder. Everybody does that, right? Dandelions and burdock and Oregon grape and barberry. Everybody makes sure, there's lots of herbs that'll make you make more bile and flush things out, clean things out. Great. But there's a few herbs called hepatics. So the guys that make your liver work harder and better are cholagogues. That's the funky herbalist word for those guys. They're bile tonics. They increase production and flow of bile. Okay, which is okay. But the hepatics are the herbs that are liver restoratives, that actually heal the liver. You can about grow yourself a new liver as long as you don't have cirrhosis. Okay. And why can't you help cirrhosis? It's because there's no liver there. It's all scar tissue. Okay. It's a good trick to heal liver cells and make them reproduce. It would be a very, very good trick to turn a cartilage cell, a scar tissue cell, into a liver cell. I don't have a nerve for that. Okay. So cirrhosis that tissue's gone. Certainly you can heal and restore and support the stuff that's left, but you're not going to have the ability to regenerate like you do in an otherwise less compromised liver. And there's also herbs that can restore and heal and bless the kidneys. Okay. Help them do their job lots better. And again, there's a lot of kidney herbs that are diuretics, right? That make you pee more. That's a good thing to do. Parsley, dandelion leaf, anybody green is probably a good diuretic. But there's also some herbs that can have some soothing, healing, restorative properties on the kidney too. Nettle seed is my favorite one. Romania chamomile does that too. There's several of those guys. Okay. Anyway, that should really be the fundamentals of what you're doing with a cleanse. You're feeding the organs. You're giving them things they need to do their job better. You're healing them. You're restoring them. That's a cleanse. You're not beating the heck out of them and screaming at them to work harder so you can curl up on the bathroom floor and wish you were dead from the cramping. That's not helping anything. Okay? That's not what we want. The best mindset is to nourish and support, not to purge. Okay? If the thing you're doing seems like purging or stressing those organs, it's probably a bad idea. All right. Here's a great quote that I love. Heroics are heady, but wisdom's work is slow. This is how both garden and gratitude grow. Okay. Take some time, do things naturally, do things in the way God intended them to be done, the way nature, if you don't believe in God, the way nature intended them to be done, the way biology intends it to be done. Do it that way. And the effects will be better. The results will be better. There won't be all the trauma and drama and rehab necessary afterward. And you'll get exactly what you want, which is a well-fed, well-nourished, well-supported, healthy body. Okay. So I appreciate you listening. We'll go through comments and questions. And I am going to have a shameless commercial announcement. That is, we do have an herbal cleanse kit at homegrownherbalist.net. And guess what? If you do this cleanse, you won't even know you're doing it. It's very, very much what we've been talking about all night. Okay. There's nothing magic in here. There's nothing in here that if you take a spoonful of it and don't eat anything else for 10 days, you'll lose weight. Well, that's not true. You would lose weight if you didn't eat anything but this for 10 days. Anyway, that's not the point of it. Okay. There's nothing in here that's going to keep you from going to work. Okay. There's nothing in here that's going to keep you from playing with your grandkids or mowing your lawn. All right. This is very much an all natural, nutritive herbal supplement to your body. It comes with complete instructions on how to do everything step by step by step. And, you know, I've had a ton of people do this over the years and they like it. And they say they feel lots better and it's not traumatic and dramatic and purgative and painful. So that's what we got. Okay. I would strongly recommend you look at this if you're interested in doing it. If you don't want to buy this, go out in your yard and eat a lot of grandland leaves and go to the grocery store and buy some broccoli and eat good, nutritious, delicious, wonderful things. Lay off the simple carbs, lay off too much fat and protein unless it's winter and that's all you can get, which it never is in North America, right? Or Europe. And eat the things that your body was designed to eat in a way that it was designed to eat them. And 99% of what you need to have happen will happen, you know, and take a good source of vitamins, because I'm sorry, but there's no vitamins in a lot of the food we eat anymore. They bred it all out of them. So that's another thing that herbs can do that's fantastic, is they still have not only all the medicine in them, but they have the vitamins because they're growing in places that haven't been factory farmed for 40 years and had all the nutrients pulled out of the soil. You know, farmers are only putting 3 chemicals on their dirt, 3 minerals, you know, potassium, phosphorus, and ammonia. That's all they get. They're not putting any boron or magnesium or manganese or any of the other bazillion micro minerals we need to live, you know. But if you go up in the hills a little bit, the dirt has those things because every year everything falls back to the dirt. It gets recomposted, decomposed, recycled. The bugs and the worms and the bacteria do their job and turn that stuff into food for the other plants who turn it into food for us. Okay. So herbs are a tremendous source of nutrients and medicine. All right. Let's look at questions and comments. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to try and figure this out. Okay, so we had lots of hellos and stuff. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. There's some things I can do really good on a computer, and there's some things I can't do at all on a computer. So here we go. Okay, here we are. We got Peggy at the North Pole, and lots of other hellos from people. Christy still likes the t-shirt, so that's good. If you tuned in late, I'm wearing my Homegrown Herbalist t-shirt that Evan got for me. They're not for sale, but they're fun. Christy says we need to make one and sell them to you, so maybe we'll do that. Okay. Okay, so Cindy says, I really enjoy your channel. I discovered it about 6 months ago. I'm not sure what this live chat's supposed to be about. I just got a notification. So the live chat is, if you have questions, poke them in there and we'll answer them, okay? Okay, Mary Ann says, hi from Missouri. Barbara says, hi from South Carolina. Cindy says, what do you think about primrose oil as a cleanse? You know, I haven't used it. I don't know much about it. I have used primrose as a respiratory herb for respiratory conditions. It's very, very good for that. I haven't used, if you're talking about the essential oil, I haven't used that for anything. I'm not really the expert on essential oils because if I touch most of them, I get blisters on my entire body. Okay. So I'm not friends with essential oils. And I'm not saying that to say bad things about essential oils. They're remarkable. We sell essential oils. Okay. I don't go into that room. And it's not because the essential oils did anything bad. It's because I did something really dumb. And I've probably told you this story before, but I'm a veterinarian, right? Been a veterinarian for 30 years. And I was working some calves one day in Minnesota. Hi to all the Minnesota guys. And I got some ringworm on my arm, right? And I looked at it and I said, oh, I got ringworm. And I used to make, and this was eons ago, but I used to make out of tea tree oil, melaleuca oil, an udder spray for cows for udder sores, because tea tree oil is amazing for killing bacteria and yeasts and fungal organisms and about anything. And so I would mix it with water and put it, and I'd give it to the farmers. And if their cows were getting udder sores, they could squirt them and they'd get better, right? So I had tea tree oil in my truck, and I had iodine in my truck because I'm a vet, right? And I would always, pre-surgical, I'd splash iodine on the side of the cow before I opened her up. Anyway, I had this ringworm, and I said, oh, I can kill that. And I got some cotton, and I soaked it with tea tree oil, undiluted, right? And iodine, slapped it on, wrapped it up with some vet wrap, got back to work, and worked 8 hours. At the end of the day, I unwrapped the bandage, and all the flesh just sloughed right off my arm, right? Take home message, it's good to mix essential oils with a carrier oil so they're not as intense, and probably don't combine them with iodine. Write that down if you're taking notes on the lecture. Anyway, and by the way, shoot me an email at info@homegrownherbalist.net, and I'll send you the slides for this thing if you want them. Anyway, my inside of my body got exposed to essential oils, right? Like my immune system saw them, not just my skin, but my innards, because of the nature of the wound. And so ever since then, my immune system's been pretty adamant that I not touch them ever again. And a lot of them have the same terpenes and monoterpenes and chemicals in them that tea tree oil has. Some of them don't bother me at all, but some of them, I don't get close. So short answer, I have no idea what primrose oil does, but the plant is a very good respiratory herb. All right. Raphael says, can you recommend something for fatty liver? Absolutely. So fatty liver, in most cases, in many cases, is a reversible condition. Okay. Fatty liver is when your liver deposits fat in itself, which is a bad idea, right? Because you need liver cells, not fat cells in your liver. Okay. There's 3 principal causes of fatty liver. One is overconsumption of alcohol. One is overconsumption of simple carbohydrates and fats. And the other is bad luck. Some people just have metabolisms and they don't know why they get fatty liver. Skinny people that don't drink get fatty liver sometimes. But if it's because of, overeating or alcohol, then cessation of those activities will result in the liver being able to heal itself. I would certainly, at that point, also take some liver restorative herbs like milk thistle, like clovers. We have a formula called Liver Builder that would be helpful in giving the liver what it needs to restore and heal. But if part of the problem is too much alcohol consumption or too much food consumption, especially fats and simple carbs, cut that out, back way off of those things. And that'll make you feel better in all kinds of other ways too. If you're not having issues with diet and alcohol, I would still try and improve the diet and try and increase exercise and see if that helps. I would also do some liver hepatics, like the Liver Builder formula. Just go look at that formula and look at the herbs that are in there. You can make your own. You don't have to use mine, or go buy mine. That's easy. But I don't know. Rafael Arias might be somewhere he doesn't want to pay shipping for herbs for me. But you can look at You can go to homegrownherbalist.net and just look at the herbs in that formula. Those are the guys you want. Okay. Okay. Laura Bergeson says, do you find the lemon juice and olive oil cleanse for acute gallstones inappropriate? Absolutely, because it doesn't do anything to your liver or your gallbladder. It doesn't. It's not correct. Okay. If you have gallstones and sluggish bile, there are things you can do for that. There are herbs that can help that. But the way they help it is by increasing bile flow a little bit, by decreasing the stones and dissolving a little bit. So I have a formula called gallbladder and bile duct or something like that. Gallbladder and bile duct, I think it's called. Anyway, so there's some things in that formula that increase bile flow a little bit, and there's some things in that formula that help dissolve the stones a little bit. But there's also things in that formula that lubricate the bile duct, like marshmallow. And there's things that relax the bile duct, like lobelia, which is a muscle relaxant. Okay. And so that formula, the herbs in that formula have been used for thousands and thousands of years to help clear out the gallbladder and help get rid of the stones. Now, I will also say that most gallbladder pain isn't caused by stones. Most gallbladder pain is caused by inflammation and stagnation of the bile in the gallbladder. And that the herbs in that formula would be beneficial for that too. Okay. All right. Sean says, greetings from Tampa. Hello, Sean in Tampa. Mary says, can you please address how those of us without a gallbladder should cleanse the liver differently? That's a very good question. It's a question I get a lot, Mary. There's no difference. The gallbladder is a little pouch on the bottom of your liver that stores extra bile. Okay. It doesn't produce bile. It doesn't do anything with bile except move it. So what happens is your liver is making bile constantly. Okay. And that bile is going down your bile duct pretty constantly. And what the gallbladder does is just a little pouch with some muscles around it. And when you eat something, especially if you eat something fatty, because the purpose of bile is to emulsify fats so you can absorb them and digest them, right? When you eat something fatty, your gallbladder gets a memo, right, in the form of a hormone, and it contracts. And that squeezes the bile, so you get an extra little boost of bile in your digestive tract to help with all that fatty stuff you just ate, okay? That's all it does. And if you don't have the gallbladder, you still have the bile duct. If you don't still have the bile duct, get your money back from the surgeon, because that's a big problem. But you should still have the bile duct. And so if you do liver cleansing and, and when I say liver cleansing, I mean liver tonics, liver support. Those herbs will still work. They'll still work. And I haven't ever had anybody tell me, holy cow, doc, I did that liver stuff and that was really hard on me because I don't have a gallbladder. I've never heard that. I've been doing this for a long time. So again, moderation in all things. If you're doing natural things in a natural way, and you still have all the plumbing, you just don't have the pump. Okay, so it should be fine. Okay. Raphael says, I have fatty liver with simple cysts and I'm terrified. I am so sorry that that's going on. What a hard thing. What a hard thing. But do the things we talked about and see if that helps you. And certainly decreasing alcohol consumption, if that's going on at all, improving your diet, decreasing fats and simple carbohydrates, eat the way a hunter-gatherer ate, that'll be really good. And take some of that liver builder, and that'll help your liver have what it needs. Okay, Pam says, I'm glad I read the article. Thank you. Oh, I don't know what article you read. I'm glad you read it too, and I hope you liked it. I hope even more that I wrote it. That would be good. But if it was some other article, that would be okay too. You can like those. Okay. Pam says it was crazy. All right. Oh, the article. Jim McDonald's article. Yeah, okay. I'm getting it. Yeah, good. I'm glad you read it. Jim's a great guy. We almost lost him a few years ago. He's a young guy. He's got little kids, and him and his wife and family were in Scotland. And he had a massive heart attack in Scotland on vacation, and they about lost him. I was really, really very glad to hear that he pulled out of that and is still helping and loving and saving people. He's a great guy. All right. Mary says, Sadly, I tried this about 35 years ago and didn't get rid of my gallstones, but did make it necessary for my gallbladder to be removed. Oh, yeah, that's fun. I'm very. Why are we stressing the system, right? That's what we've been talking about tonight. Purgative procedures are a bad idea. You know, if the system's already stressed, if you already have a lot of inflammation and rocks in your gallbladder and you blast it with that kind of experience, you know, can you imagine how much bile got flushed through that system to try and deal with that, you know, quart of olive oils they drink? You know, it's horrible. Don't do it. It's not the way you do it. Okay. B. Rose. Now, this is Brandon Rose, Dr. Brandon Rose, who's got a PhD in physiology and is my son-in-law. I knew him when he was just a kid marrying my little girl, and now he's a PhD in physiology. And Brandon Rose, Dr. Rose, is one of our researchers. Okay, he has a real job too, but but he spends a lot of precious resources helping me do what we call herb mining. You know, we're digging into the research and finding out really cool, amazing things that some of these plants can do. And he's really a brilliant, super guy and a great resource. Anyway, let's see what he said. Hopefully it'll be something brilliant after I said all that about him. Okay, something else important to consider is that fruit juices are as deleterious to insulin sensitivity as sugared soda. That's right. That's right. So drinking lots of juice has impact on insulin and sugar metabolism and insulin resistance and all kinds of other things. And it's just kind of a bad idea. Okay, Joe deleted a message. Dark Shade says, hey. Hello, Dark Shade. Okay. Oh, look, I'm making my button work. Denise says, oops. Okay. Denise says, what about people that don't have a gallbladder? Okay. So Denise says, what about people that don't have a gallbladder? My functional medical doctor recommended ox bile and digestive enzymes to help break down fats. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If you don't have bile, I mean, you have bile, but if you don't have a gallbladder to kind of give you that extra little pump of bile into your gut when you have a lot of fat ingested, taking some enzymes and some bile from another source would help digest those fats. Okay, it would make everything easier. So yeah, your doctor is smart. Okay. Kleiner Hote Hex says it's a fad, and just like all fads, I don't do it. If I choose to fast, it is a water fast. Otherwise, I keep my intermittent fasting. 1 meal a day goes well with me. Yeah. Okay. So that's exactly correct. If you're going to fast, and I don't have any problem with fasting, I fast every month. Okay. But I only fast for about 3/4 of a day. You know, it's not a 24-hour thing. And so I think it's a really good idea. I think, you know, and if you're not religious, apologies, but I think God likes us to fast. He talks about it all the time, right? But he doesn't want us to do it all the time. But occasionally I find that fasting, and I'm talking about a very short, occasional fast, I find that it's good for your body. I think it cleans things out. And I also find that it gives me a little more focus on things that matter. And I would guess that's why God likes us to do it, because we're instead of shoving Big Macs down our throats, we're thinking about other things, you know. And maybe some of those things are important. Maybe he can get a word in edgewise once in a while if we're not so focused on food. Anyway, all right. Brandon says, never mind, you just mentioned the insulin thing. Okay. The Proverbs mom says, all these side effects would motivate me not to cleanse. Good girl. That was the whole point of me doing this, was to help people think about not doing it. All right. Unless you're going to do it, like I said, in a natural, organic, almost imperceptible way by using herbs and eating right. Okay, that's how I do it. That's how I have my clients do it. And you know, It's not infrequent that a client comes to me for a phone consult or comes to the practice for a naturopath consult, and I say, hey, it would be a really good idea to think about doing a cleanse. But when I'm thinking about cleansing, I'm not thinking about purging the body of junk. I'm thinking about feeding and supporting the body so it can purge itself of junk in a natural, normal, not very exciting way. That's how you do it. And that's how when I developed the cleanse kit protocol, that's how I did it. You won't even know you're doing it. You might have a little bit looser stool, but it won't be diarrhea. And you know what? If you ate more vegetables, you'd have a little bit looser stool. Okay. And that would be a good thing. All right. Okay. What about, okay. Yeah. Now she says, now comes the interesting part, colonics. And the proverb mom who said things she didn't want to do said, especially she doesn't want to do colonics. Judy says, what about coffee enemas? Okay. Coffee enemas. And what about enemas in general? So an enema is a different thing than a colonic. Okay. And sometimes an enema can be very useful in a life-threatening condition. And you're all saying, what? And I'll tell you, if you have a case of severe dehydration, a water enema is the fastest way to rehydrate the person or the animal that's dying of dehydration. Because remember what we said about your colon and what Mr. Colon does? He absorbs water. That's his job. And sometimes if you have a person, and this would be like an apocalypse situation, but if you have somebody that needs fluids now and you don't have an IV, an enema will get fluids into them now really fast. Okay. The colon is also good at absorbing, vitamins and other things. And so sometimes an enema can be a beneficial thing. Now, again, how often should you get an enema? Almost never, right? You almost never need an enema. Sometimes if a person is so bound up and so constipated, they'll do an enema and that can give them some relief. But a much better idea is to drink lots of water and eat lots of vegetables and greens and fiber. That's a much better idea. Okay. But sometimes people have health conditions that make it so that there's something wrong with their guts and they're not moving stuff out. Sometimes they have to do an enema. What about a coffee enema? Why is that a good idea? Well, or why does it do anything? I don't know if it's a good idea. Again, what's the natural thing? But what happens when you do a coffee enema? They put coffee into the large intestine. They have you lay on your side. And basically what that does is it makes that coffee lay right next to your liver where the liver can absorb stuff, caffeine mostly. And that's very stimulating to the liver. Okay. And so that has similar benefits to taking some burdock or dandelion root. Personally, I'd rather take a little burdock or dandelion root. Okay. Coffee also has some tannins in it, a lot of tannins. So that can sort of tone up the gut and stuff, but you'll get all those tannins putting it in the other end. And there's also lots of tannins in a bazillion other plants. It doesn't have to be coffee. Okay. So a coffee enema, probably not. But there are some, there was, I have a mental block now because I tried to think of his name. But there was a naturopath, had a big operation down in Mexico. Somebody will tell me who it is. It started with a G. What was his name? Gerson. Anyway, he did a lot of stuff with coffee enemas and had some quite remarkable success in specific cases with specific issues. Not for everybody, just for fun. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm following Arnold Earhart's mucusless diet, Warren says. I don't know what that is. I hope it's a good thing and you get to eat some food. Okay. And Kleiner Hote Rex, I'm butchering these names, I'm very sorry, says, cool that you know Earhart. I tried some of his stuff. Warren says, I'm just finishing Rational Fasting, which is probably a book. I don't know about that one either. Linda says, what about castor oil packs? Castor oil packs topically, is that what you're talking about? If that's what you're talking about, I think that's fine for the conditions that you do that for. Kiner Hawks, we're still talking about Earhart. I don't know anything about him. Melvin says, thanks, Doc, for all you do. Melvin, thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. Raphael says he's still talking about fatty liver and cysts, and hopefully we address that. Connie says, thank you, very informative. Denise says, it's always a pleasure, Doc. Kelly says, woohoo, thank you, Doc. You guys are sweet. Okay, not everyone gets woohoos on YouTube. Would a proper cleanse be good for autoimmune disease, Brenda asks. Might be, in some cases, yes. The most important thing I do for autoimmune disease, in my experience, is I do a leaky gut protocol. So, and you can go to the website and look into that, the leaky gut kit, and look, you can read about it. There's articles on the website. There's blog articles. Read the blog articles. Just do a search for leaky gut, and you'll see all the blog articles. Leaky gut has a strong correlation with autoimmune disease. Okay. And that's a whole nother lecture topic. But basically what happens is you get disruptions between the cells in your gut. Food gets between the cells where it's not supposed to get, and your immune system sees it and says, holy cow, what's gluten? We better make antibodies. Holy cow, what's a tomato? We better make antibodies. Holy cow, what's fat and protein? We better make antibodies. And the next thing you know, your immune system's attacking your body, because unfortunately we're made out of fat and protein and things too, right? And so basically with leaky gut, your body sees things it never should have seen and develops antibodies and immune reactions to things it never should have developed immune reactions to. And it starts attacking you, which is bad. I do the leaky gut thing first. If somebody's really, in need of a cleanse, and again, my cleanse is a whole different mindset than what we've been talking about all night. But sometimes it's once a year or so, it's a good idea to clean things out and get things moving, support all the organs, get everybody healed and fed and doing their thing and happy. That's a good idea once a year or so. And like I've said several times tonight, you don't have to buy anything to do that. Just eat lots of natural, plant material and good healthy food, and not just veggies you buy at the store. Veggies you grew from heirloom seeds and weeds that were growing next to the veggies you grew. My wife and I had a beautiful salad last night made out of dandelions and blue mustard weeds. That's all that was in it. Well, she put a tomato in it. That's all that was in it. Dandelions and blue mustard weeds that the grandkids picked. They brought us this beautiful bouquet of weeds, and we smooched them and ate them. The weeds, not the kids. Anyway, eat that stuff. It's good for you. All right. So, yeah. And anyway, on the autoimmune thing, the leaky gut protocol often markedly improves things. If you're going to do a cleanse and the leaky gut, do the cleanse first, then heal up your gut and get on that road. Okay. 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 Lisa says, thanks for your time. Thank you, Lisa, for your time. Your thoughts on cleansing radiation, treatment for cancer out of my system. There's no radiation in your system at all. Okay. Radiation is a form of electromagnetic radiation like light. It's only there for the second that it's there. The minute you turn off the switch, it's gone and there's nothing there. Okay. So you don't have to clean the radiation out of your body unless you've been eating plutonium. That's a bad idea. Okay. But there are some things you can do for heavy metals, and that's go to the website and look at the herbs. I have a formula called heavy metals. Go look at those guys. Corella, there's some guys in there that can help absorb some of that stuff. That's probably not what you're talking about. There are things, I will tell you this, if a person has had cancer, they do a lot of pharmaceuticals and a lot of chemotherapy and a lot of horrible drugs that are killing cancer and lots of other things. And sometimes that's what you do. And I'm not blaming you for doing that. But I'm going to give you two pieces of advice if you're doing chemotherapy. One is don't take any herbs to protect yourself from the chemotherapy during the chemotherapy. Otherwise, you're missing the point. Okay. If you take a lot of milk thistle, for example, it will completely inactivate all kinds of pharmaceuticals. Okay. And my feeling on pharmaceuticals, and especially chemotherapy, is if you're going to poison yourself, do it like you mean it. You know what I mean? I mean, seriously, the point of chemo is to kill stuff. And if you protect everybody by taking a lot of milk thistle, you're taking those poisons and not getting the benefit. Does that make sense? Now, that's principle number one. Principle number two is the minute you're done with the chemo, take a lot of milk thistle, okay? To heal everybody and detox and help your guts not be so mad at you. And so I do think a cleanse is a great idea after that kind of experience. A cleanse is probably a good idea after the radiation, not because there's already any radiation, but because there's a lot of cell death, and that's a lot of toxins. And it'd be good for your kidneys and liver to be happier than usual and doing their job better than usual, which is what my cleanse is. Okay, that's how it works. It just makes your organs do what they're supposed to do and be happy about doing it. Okay, and so yeah, I think in a cancer case like that, if you've had a lot of radiation and killed a lot of things in there, not a bad idea to do a cleanse. If you had chemo after you're done with the chemo, absolutely a cleanse is a good idea, but not during the chemo. Okay, and also be aware that, and I usually say that this at the very beginning, but herbs and drugs can interact in ways that are often not great. Sometimes they help each other a lot. Sometimes the herb makes the drug work better, but sometimes that's a bad idea. Sometimes you got too much of a good thing, right? And so if you're combining pharmaceuticals and herbs, make sure you talk to somebody that really understands both before you do that. Okay. Vinny says, does the nutrients degrade or expire over the time? Does heat destroy the efficacy? So dry herbs last a year or two. Tinctures last years and years and years and years. I wouldn't worry about a tincture degrading. I mean, I think most of us will be dead before our tinctures aren't good for anything. But yeah, dry herbs are only good for a year or two. So if you've got herbs that are 3 or 4 years old, they're probably not very effective. Okay. And again, that depends on the herb, and it depends on what's in the herb that makes it effective, and yada yada, right? Okay. Guy, I assume it's Guy, maybe it's Guy Gulligan. Hi, Doc. I'll review the live coverage because I'm working while listening. Thanks a lot. All right. Send me an email at info, and I'll send you the slides. info@homegrownherbalist.net. The Proverbs Mom says, thanks. Thank you, Proverbs Mom. You've been wonderful tonight. You've had a lot of really good questions. Debbie, I bought the cleanse. Will cider vinegar be considered a fermented item? So she's talking about in the cleanse of mine, there's one part, if you want, that you can do a candida cleanse. And I say, lay off the fermented stuff for a week or two while you're doing this. And yeah, I would lay off even the good fermented stuff for a week or two while you're doing it. Okay. Because there can be sometimes some yeasty guys in there, and I just wouldn't, there's no reason to complicate things. I've been growing microgreens, Sally says. Have read they are full of nutrition, as full of the nutrition as the mature plant. Is that true? Well, I think microgreens can have tons of nutrition in them. Absolutely. Because they're coming from the seed right away, and they still have a lot of the nutrients that they needed to start their life. So they're very dense in nutrition. If you're talking about sprouts, otherwise, greens are greens, and I mean, eat them up. That's a great idea. Something I really like about wild things that grow in the dirt is they get micro minerals that are in the dirt. Okay, so I like that. I worry a little bit about some of these hydroponic garden systems because we're giving the plants things to make them big and green and beautiful and tasty, but are they really getting all the nutrients and things in them that, that we ought to have? You know what I mean? All right. Okay. Okay. Ever Washington says, is there anything herbal that can help heal granulomas naturally? I haven't done anything with granulomas herbal that I don't think there is. I think if you have a significant granuloma, you probably just need to get it cut off, and then you can heal up the hole with some herbs. That'd be good. But no, I don't think there's anything I'm aware of. Certainly don't put any black sap on it. That's a bad idea. But no, I don't. I think that's a surgical thing. Sometimes a knife is the best way to go. Nathan says, hi from Arizona. Hello, Nathan. Raphael says, thanks. And I hope you get feeling better, Raphael. I really do. That's hard. Morgan Lindstrom, when I take milk thistle a few days in a row, I get boils. Oh, mercy. Is this because I need to do the colon, small intestine, gallbladder before I take these? And the toxins are just getting reabsorbed? Well, there could be two reasons that you're getting boils from milk thistle. One could be that you have a sensitivity to milk thistle, and maybe you shouldn't take it, if you're allergic or something. It's probably not because your guts are plugged up, but like I said before, it is a very good idea to clean your guts out before you make your liver, produce more bile and clean itself out. But I doubt very much that the boils are secondary to that. I would guess that the boils are more likely a personal antipathy that your body has to milk thistle. So substitute that with cleavers, and maybe that'll be better. Okay. Okay. Barbara says, my husband's had an itchy rash on his chest and neck for about a year now. He did your cleanse, has been taking nutritive formula and liver tincture. Also tried topical salves and lotions. Okay. Yeah, that's no fun. So, what you might look at, because he's already doing the liver stuff. Why is he taking liver stuff for a rash, you ask? Well, because a lot of times when people have a rash, most of the time, in fact, psoriasis and eczema especially, it's because their liver is grumpy. But sometimes it's also just an allergic thing. And maybe what he ought to do is try some, go a different tack. And maybe he ought to try some antihistamine herbs like Brigham tea, or nettles or eyebright, some of those guys. I have a formula called histamine, but even just some straight Brigham tea might be a really good idea. See what that does. And the other thing is that I think is a really great idea is to get a diagnosis. Go to the doctor and find out what the heck's going on, because he might know what's going on. I think doctors are phenomenal at diagnosing things, and they're really good mechanics, right? I had a brain tumor a year ago. I was really glad I knew a nice guy that could cut that rascal out. It wasn't cancer or anything, but it was making me blind. I had this benign and happy Vienna sausage growing in my head for fun. But go to the doctor and get a diagnosis. And then when he pulls out his prescription pad, run, But and if you get some information, shoot me an email. If he tells you it's this or that, well, then we can bark up the right tree, Okay. Judy says, I've done all those cleanses mentioned in an effort to heal from mycotoxin and mold illness. Also did a 5-day water fast, even though I experienced pain in my lower back after day 3. Now I know better, Judy says. Judy, I'm so sorry you went through all those things. And I'm sorry you went through the mold thing too. That's so hard. Wow. All right. Barbara. Oh, she's still talking about the rash. I put him on the Whole30 diet as well. Still has the rash. Try some antihistamine stuff. Try some Brigham tea. And if that doesn't work, that tells us things too. You know what I mean? All right. Pam says, you're amazing, Doc. Thanks so much. Thank you, Pam. How does a cleanse affect someone who has lupus and is taking medications to help control it? Okay. Well, I would have to know specifically what medications and what kind of cleanse you're doing. If you're doing our cleanse system, I'd have to know exactly what medications. And sometimes I tell people who are on certain medications, no, don't do this herb. I mean, I do that a lot. I mean, that's half of my nature practice is telling people what they shouldn't take as an herb, because they're on this med that they need, and they don't play well together. So I would need to know that. That's a whole different subject. Shoot me an email. Okay. But again, with the lupus, Nathan, the leaky gut thing is the first thing I would do. But again, I would want to know what meds the person's on. Okay. Judy says, I'm excited about the Dr. Jones cleanse. Thank you so much. Well, thank you, Judy. I'm glad you're excited. Blue mustard is the bomb. I love that stuff. Yeah, it's a great weed. And then we have a lot of links to pornographic websites. That's fun. Thank you for that. Evan can delete those. Sean, he said they're gone already. Good. You're not seeing them. I'm just seeing the links. I'm not seeing any pictures or anything. Sean says, thanks for your wisdom, Doc. I'll get on it. Good. I'm glad we could help. Mary says, what causes dry herbs to degrade in a year's time? Well, they just break down. I mean, the chemicals just break down. They're volatile oils, and some of them don't at all. Some of them are still great, in a long time. But some of the oils, especially if there's any essential oil elements, and some of those chemicals just aren't very stable, and so they don't last very long. And it's not that the herbs turn into something bad or poison if they're dried. It's just that they get weaker. Okay. So alcohol is a phenomenal preservative. And so the best way, if you want herbs long term, if you want to put herbs on your shelf and have them still be good for something in 10 years, make a tincture. Right. And make the tincture the first day, not after they've been sitting around for 2 years and you feel bad that they're going to get wasted. Make the tincture with good herbs. And speaking of which, if I can make another shameless commercial announcement, we just came out. I did a thing down in, I don't even remember where I was. It's been a long month. I've done a couple of conventions. I don't remember where they are. I did one in Sandy. And then before that, I did one somewhere else. Where was that, Evan? Somewhere in Utah. Layton. Anyway, I had 2 or 3 people come up and say, for crying out loud, Doc, why don't you make a big kit that has everything in it? So I don't have to keep buying stuff. And so I thought, oh, okay. So we made a big kit called the Bunker Buster Herb Kit. And it has an enormous amount of tinctures in it. There's nothing in that kit that doesn't have a really long shelf life. Go have a look at that thing. The Bunker Buster Kit on homegrownherbalist.net. It has tons of about anything you need to fix about anything. So anyway, if you want something to put in your bunker or your closet that'll still be good a long time from now, do that. Okay. What herb, Runnerman says, would promote an increased metabolism? Well, there are some herbs that'll do that. The ginsengs will do that. A lot of the liver herbs will do that. Burdock will do that. Chickweed, if you're talking about losing weight, chickweed will do that. They say, I haven't ever tried it, but they say it helps burn fat. Anyway, the other thing is dietary changes. Blue mustard isn't an herb, but if you ate a lot of it, it would improve your metabolism because it would clean things out and get things moving, and it would make your systems know what to do. The thing is, when we eat things, every single thing we eat, including every pharmaceutical that we put in our mouth, our body says, oh, okay, what plant is that like? How shall I metabolize that? Which plant enzyme metabolism pathway should I put this on? Right? I mean, we're designed to eat plants. We're designed to eat little furry animals too. They're delicious. But I mean, we're designed to eat, complex green carbohydrates. That's what we're designed to eat. And so, even just doing that would improve metabolism and help with weight loss and energy and all the things. Let your body eat the way, pretend you're 1,000 years ago. What would you eat? Eat that stuff. Okay. Put blue mustard and dandelions on your salad. Okay. Okay. Ever says, thanks for answering my question and for everything else you do for everyone. Thanks for having questions and for sharing your time with us, Ever. Okay. Kleiner T Hex says, dang, I forgot to put cleavers in my tea, but they don't like boiling water much anyway, right? Yeah. I don't boil them. I don't boil herbs. I make the hot water, I boil the water, then I turn it off, and then I throw the herbs in. I don't ever cook the herbs. Some herbs could care less. I mean, you can boil elderberry for an hour. It won't care at all. It won't hurt the medicine at all. But some of them, it wipes them out. So I just don't do anybody. All my herbs are powdered. I dry them and I grind them up in a blender so they're powdered. And I think if the old eclectics had had a Vitamix blender to make powder out of everything, they would never have done decoctions when they were boiling stuff for a long time. The only reason they boil stuff for a long time is to get the medicine out of dense materials like roots and tree bark and stuff, But if it's powdered, poof, the stuff's out. It's the hot water, So there's no reason to boil them for a long time. Okay, as soon as they're cool enough to drink, they're ready. Okay. Alisa says, I'm surprised you're not aware of the great herbalists whose shoulders I walk upon. You might wish to focus on the plethora of research in the Fatty Liver Summit. I would love to focus on the plethora of research in the Fatty Liver Summit. I'll do that. Barbara says, thanks. I'll try the Brigham tea. Alice says, ibuprofen causes fatty liver, and I don't doubt that at all. Okay. I don't doubt that at all. A lot of the chemistry that we're putting into our bodies is horrible for our livers and horrible for our bodies. And if somebody showed me a paper that said ibuprofen contributed to fatty liver, I'd say, oh yeah. I mean, I can believe that. You know, yeah, absolutely. Okay. Antoinette says, I just had teeth implants put in. Should I metal cleanse? And if so, how often? Yeah, so it depends what metals they put in there, right? But yeah, I know that dental fillings can be a big problem, especially the old stuff. I don't even know what they're putting in now. I'm not really up to speed on that. But there's a lot of ways to do chelations and cleanses and things to pull stuff out, and I don't think that's a bad idea. On here, Alyssa, she says absolutely. Yep, I agree. Okay, Carrie Ann Madden. What do you do for a black widow bite? What I do is I do the venom and sting formula that we have. Look at the herbs in there. It's just equal parts dandelion, echinacea, plantain, and dandelion root. Oh, I said that twice. Marshmallow. Dandelion root, echinacea, marshmallow root, and plantain. That's what's in it. Anyway, that's what I put it on topically, take it internally. That formula was designed principally for recluse, brown recluse, and hobo bites and rattlesnake bites, which I've used it on a lot. In my veterinary practice, I've used it on a lot of rattlesnake bites. In my human practice, I've used it on a lot of hobo bites and brown recluse bites. Well, hobo bites, we don't have a lot of brown recluse around here, but it's the same venom. But we've also had folks use it on black widows and said it was much better and helped a lot. So, okay. Kelly says, I would buy that t-shirt. I love it. There's 2 of them we can sell, Evan. All right. Any suggestions for uterine fibroids? Send me an email. I have a formula for that, but that's hard and complicated too. Shoot me an email. Kleiner Hothex, talking about the black widow, says plantain, poultice, tea tincture, eat it. But I'm sure the doc has some other good herbs. Yeah, absolutely. Plantain just by itself is a rock star for stings and bites, and topically and internally. And that would probably do the trick on a black widow. The reason I put the echinacea in the other venoms is because it inhibits the tissue destruction from the hyaluronidase, the enzyme that dissolves your flesh it dissolves the glue that holds your cells together, hyaluronic acid. But echinacea is in the venom and sting formula for that, but that's not an issue with the black widows. So the plantain just by itself would be great. All right, and heck, I've got a very good friend who got bitten on the hand by a rattlesnake. He was literally in a loincloth. He's a wilderness survival guy climbing Snake River Canyon, and he reached up and got bit by a rattlesnake, and his hand swelled up like a volleyball. And all he had was plantain. He's 4 days walk from nowhere, and he poulticed it, and he ate it and ate it and ate it, and he poulticed it some more, and he ate it and ate it and ate it, chewed it up and poulticed, spit poultice, to break it up and get the chemicals out of the plant. But he said the next day the hand, all the swelling was gone, and he was fine. So that's plantain's an astoundingly good herb for toxins. All right. Ever Washington says, what would be a good herbal substitute for someone that's allergic to milk thistle? Cleavers is another good restorative for the liver. That's probably what I would use. But there's a lot of other good liver guys. Liver tonics, and burdock is a fabulous one. I love burdock. But cleavers has more of the restorative effects like milk thistle has. Chamomile also has some of those effects. Look at that liver builder formula. Look at the other kids that are in that formula. Okay. Pam says, I think I made a tincture. I put a tablespoon of vodka in some raw chopped plant material, lavender, stirred it around, covered it with olive oil. It is a great skin treatment. Is it a real tincture? No, it's a real, well, it's sort of a cross between an infused oil and a tincture. And it would certainly work. I mean, there's nothing wrong with what you did. The alcohol will pull the chemicals out of the lavender, which is what you want, and the oil will, make it nicer on your skin. So yeah, a real tincture would just be alcohol. Although real old school herbalists, I mean, like 1800s herbalists, will sometimes use the term tincture for, glycerites and infused oils and alcohol tinctures. But modern fancy herbalists only use it for alcohol tinctures, for alcohol extracts. Okay. So poor but clean waves, and I say hello back. And then she says, would cleansing help with fibromyalgia and weakness? So again, this is sort of similar. We've had a couple of other autoimmunity and lupus folks asking. And I, some depending on the case, sometimes I'll have folks do a mild, good cleanse. But mostly what I do with fibromyalgia cases, if I'm going to do a cleanse, I do that first. But the main thing I do with all of them is I do that leaky gut protocol. And that seems to help a lot of them. If the leaky gut protocol is not enough, then there's some herbal things I do that can help too. Okay. But a lot of times the leaky gut brings things to healing the leaky gut brings things to a level that, that things are much better. So, all right. Kelly says, is the merch store on a different website? I want to buy gifts for my peeps. What's like the t-shirt store? Is that what she's talking about, Evan? Is that a merch store? Oh, okay. So Evan says that YouTube is selling our shirts, which is friendly of them. I wasn't aware. I hope they send me $1 or something. Yeah, the merch store is apparently something else. So if there's a button or something, apparently they're making all those shirts and drop shipping them, and it has really very little to do with us, except they might give us a little royalty or something. Anyway, Poor But Clean says, I think I have ulcers. So there are some things that can be done for ulcers. Some of my favorite herbs for ulcers are calendula and comfrey together. Cayenne also, believe it or not, can be very effective for ulcers. That's completely counterintuitive. I feel like I've got fire in my belly. I guess I'll take some fire. But cayenne has some profound effects on ulcers. So that can be good too. All right. Well, I think that's all the questions. Well, I am very, very grateful for your time and attention and your support and your friendship and your, just the fact that you're willing to, listen and share ideas and hear things. I'm very, very grateful. And I would be very, very grateful if you taught other people things, right? That would be great. And one of the ways to do that is we can subscribe and like and share and do all the YouTube-y things people do. All right. So we're talking about herbal cleanses and supportive therapies. And, we've been talking about the immune system all day and about autoimmune disorders. And, so much of that ties into this because, two of the most important things, let's say three things, three really important things to good health are eating real food, having your body clean, inside and out, and having low stress. And it's just massively important to your health. If you want to get really sick, get really stressed. That's the best way in the world to get really sick because it suppresses your immune system. If you want to get really sick, eat really crappy food because that'll really gork you up and make you sick too. It just makes the body works really pretty well if we give it what it needs, and one of the things it needs is a good cleanup once in a while. So we're going to talk about how to do that today. I'm Dr. Patrick Jones. I think I said that. Didn't I say that? I probably said that. I'm an herbalist and a veterinarian and a naturopath. I don't do herbal cleanses in the vet practice, but we do them with the people. And so let's get going here. Just before we start, like we always do, we wanted to remind you not to take herbs with medications unless you've talked with somebody that understands both of them. And also not to take herbs, especially a lot of these cleanse herbs are not safe if you're pregnant or if you're nursing. Not safe for you and not safe for the little bambino that's nursing. So don't take any herbs and don't do a cleanse if you're pregnant. Just wait till you're done nursing and then you can clean everything out after that. Just a few notes on formulation. We've talked about this today a couple times already, but there's going to be some formulas in the notes. And by the way, if it's written on one of these screens, you don't have to write it down. I'm sending you everything. If you're in this course, I'm sending you everything. And if you're in the school, you can download it. You can click a button and download it in that lesson, the herbal cleanse lesson. Anyway, if it says 2 echinacea and 1 calendula, 1 cleavers, what that means is 2 volumes of weight. So 2 grams or 2 ounces or 2 pounds. They're just ratios. Okay. So this formula, if you're making it with grams, you do 2 grams of echinacea, 1 gram of calendula, 1 gram of cleavers. You can do that with ounces or pounds or whatever you want. Okay. Also, the dosing of the formulas can be found on any page, any product page on the website has dosing. Typically a teaspoon or 2 for an adult powder of the powder, and 20 or 30 drops of a tincture. Okay, so why would we cleanse? What's the point? Well, in the good old days, life was pretty simple. We ate things and things ate us, right? What could be complicated? And so we got a lot more physical activity, chasing things we wanted to eat and running away from things that wanted to eat us. Okay, so there's we weren't sitting at a desk all day long talking to a computer. And so physical activity is very important. And our diets were also way better. We only ate whole organic, wild crafted foods, and everything was healthy and good. And the natural patterns of nature resulted in a cleanse. You know, every spring we'd come out of our cabins or out of our caves or wherever we were living all winter, and the world was full of green leafy stuff to eat. And we would eat that because that's all there was. And that green leafy, you know, vitamin rich, fiber rich stuff would clean out our guts from, you know, all the starchy, high protein, high fat stuff we'd been eating all winter, you know, potatoes and squash and animals, you know, which is all you can find in the winter to eat, would get cleansed out. And not only mechanically from the fiber, but, you know, anything green is a diuretic, and there were liver plants and kidney plants, and we were just getting cleaned out good every year. And so it was the way it used to be, you know, when we were eating things that were either growing around us or that we were growing ourselves. So modern life is a little different than that. You know, our diet, you know, they say you are what you eat. And so, you know, you look at this poor guy. It's a very extreme example of being what you eat. But most of what we eat now and a lot of the things in our life are making us kind of have a life full of perils. You know, we eat a lot of processed foods that are almost completely devoid of nutrients, you know. And if the food wasn't bad enough, they're full of chemicals and fertilizers and pesticides and synthetic stuff to make them fluffy and light and have a shelf life of 3 years, you know. And so, you know, it's a little scary how many of the foods you could go to the store and buy and sit them on your kitchen counter, and a year later they'd look exactly the same, you know, and they ought to be rotting and molding and spoiling, but they've got so much stuff in them that isn't food to keep them shelf stable and fresh, whatever that means. Doesn't mean anything good, that, you know, they're just not that great for us. It used to be we had to work really hard to get some protein. It used to be that it was very rare to find some sugar. You know, I mean, if you stumbled on a beehive, good for you. But there was no cotton candy, you know, no popsicles, no ice cream. And so and all the foods were coarse and rough and natural and organic. And so, I mean, our bodies are getting a lot of stuff that aren't really very good for them. There's also a lot of chemicals in our bodies now. I mean, everything from air pollution stuff, exhaust, and stuff we put on our skin, chemicals that we put on our skin, fragrances and lotions and soaps and shampoos. And I mean, there's a million different things. And all of those things take a toll on our body because we have to get rid of them, Then, of course, there's the stress, right? Our stress levels are crazy high. Just modern living is more stressful. It used to be that, and adrenaline was a really useful tool for us. But now this stressful modern life we have is sort of twisting that, and we're hyper adrenalized. When the sympathetic nervous system dominates, it's a fight or flight, adrenaline rich kind of a thing. And adrenaline, fight or flight, is for running away from the tiger. It's not for spending your whole life all day, every day. And yet, because of the nature of our lives, we've got traffic and we've got deadlines and we've got bosses and we've got assignments and we've got finals and we've got whatever, a million things. And our adrenal glands can't tell any difference between that and the lions, And so what happens is when you're in that fight or flight, hyper adrenal condition, the adrenal glands and the epinephrine and the adrenaline and the things they produce and the cortisol suppress immunity. They suppress circulation to a degree. They suppress digestion, right? They suppress all kinds of things, elimination, healing, anything you can do later. We're not going to do right now. I'll run away from the lion, right? And so everything shuts down. All the good things of your parasympathetic system. So sympathetic is fight or flight. Parasympathetic is rest, relax, heal, grow, reproduce, all the nice things about your life, okay, are parasympathetic. All the things you're supposed to be doing with your body are parasympathetic. And we're living in a sympathetic fight or flight environment all the time. And the result is of all this toxic insults, all this stress, all this environmental stuff, is that the elimination functions of our body become very sluggish, very congested, and all the toxins that they're designed to eliminate build up. And that's just not good for you, okay? So regular cleansing can be really a great boon to having good health. All right. So just like we said, adrenaline, high levels of adrenaline was an escape tool. It wasn't a lifestyle. It's not designed to be a lifestyle. Okay. And I can't tell you how many people come in, and women are more susceptible to this than men are, but with severe, significant adrenal fatigue, and I'll tell you the way to diagnose adrenal fatigue that I use. One of the ways, first of all, they come in and they look worn out. That's one way. But the other way is you take a little flashlight and you shine it at the eye, not directly in the eye, but sort of at a tiny angle of the eye. And what happens is when you shoot light in the eye, the pupil goes whoop and it closes up, right? And just leave that light there for a second. And after a second, you'll see that pupil start to say, oh, I can't do it. I can't hold it. I can't keep it like there anymore. Captain, I need more power, and it'll start to quiver like that and open up a little. And if it does that in less than 10 seconds or so, that's a sign of adrenal fatigue. Okay. And so, and that's just part of this lifestyle we got. So what can we do to compensate for the diet and the toxins and the pollutants and the stress and the anxiety and the slow, sluggish elimination due to this stress and anxiety? What can we do about that for our bodies? Well, the answer is we can give them a good cleanse. Okay. And it really, really can have some tremendous benefits. So there's a bazillion cleanses on the internet. Are those good? What about those? Well, you can find a cleanse on the internet for about any organ you've got or heard of. And a lot of these have protocols. I've looked at a lot of them. A lot of them have protocols that don't have any benefit at all for the body. And some of them are downright dangerous. And so, what happens on the internet, unfortunately, is the internet is full of people that don't really know anything about anything. And so, but they want to write an article, they want to write a blog, they want to make a YouTube video, right? Because they get clicks and they get a little dopamine for getting the clicks. That's fun. And maybe they get some money from the advertisers. That's fun too, and it's a job, and that's fun to have a job. But what happens is that because they don't have any personal expertise, they're just going to some other blog article or some other YouTube video or some other whatever and cobbling stuff together, cut and paste, make another article, cut and paste, repeating the same nonsense that everybody else is repeating. And so things get sort of established as fact because everybody's saying it. Well, they're not all saying it. They're all just cutting and pasting it, And so without any real experience or any real qualifications. And so there's a lot of stuff on the internet that's really wrong. And herbal cleanses is one of those categories where there's a lot of stuff that's really wrong. And so let's be a little careful with that and talk about some of the problems, okay? So one of the problems with herbal cleanses is intensity and discomfort. There's no reason. Think about how it used to be in the good old days. And you don't have to go back to the cavemen. Go back to, 1500 or 1600. How did people live and eat? And the fact is that they were eating as a part of their normal diet and the normal cycles of nature and seasons. They were cleansing anyway. Okay. There's no reason, and that's how your body's designed to do it. There's no reason for any cleanse to cause undue discomfort. You should be able to go about your daily life and go to work, even when you're cleansing. If your liver cleanse has you curled up on the bathroom floor in the fetal position, wishing you were dead for half the night, that's wrong. Okay, that's not good for you. That's not what you're supposed to do. The idea of a cleanse should be to return the organ systems to their normal function, to a normal condition of happy, healthy, cleaned up happiness, right? And so the way we do that is by providing foods and herbs that help the body do what it's supposed to do. A good cleanse should never make the organ system do something it doesn't regularly do. All right. So these excesses and these extremes are not beneficial. It's just not the way it ought to be. Okay. If it's that miserable, you're doing it wrong. Okay. Another problem I see with these cleanses is the frequency. And I get people in my naturopath practice that come in sometimes and say, I say, what's your diet like? How do you feel about things? And they say, I only eat what I should, just good organic stuff. And I do a cleanse every month. In fact, I'm doing 2 this month because it's a hard month. I'm like, oh my word, don't do that. Don't do that. That's not what you're supposed to do. Okay. I don't think any organ system needs to be cleansed more than a couple of times a year. Okay. If you do it once or twice a year, that's plenty. You don't need to be doing anything once a month with a cleanse. All right. Or once a week for the really committed cleansers. It's a bad idea. And it can lead to all kinds of unintended consequences that aren't healthy and aren't good. Okay. So do it the way, it's a really good idea sometimes to sit back in your chair and say, how does God do this? Right? How does nature do this? Well, nature does it once a year in the spring. Now, we live in a world where we eat a lot more gunk than we're designed to eat. So it's probably a good idea to do it in the fall too. All right. But you don't need to be doing it every week or every month. Okay. The other problem I see a lot with cleanses is the order, that they're out of order. It's really important with a cleansing protocol to do things in the proper order. All right. And so if you look at your system, and particularly with the digestive system, it doesn't really matter when you do your kidneys, but the digestive system has to be done in a proper order. So if you think about it, if your colon's all gorked up with junk and toxins, and your small intestine's all gorked up with junk and toxins, how mad are they going to be if you dump a bunch of toxins from your liver into them, right? They need to be clean and happy so they can deal with that. Because this is what happens. The colon's job is to absorb water and minerals and vitamin K, I think. Not very many things. The small intestine's job is to absorb nutrients. Okay, the colon just absorbs water and a few minerals and 1 vitamin, I think. Anyway, well, there's some other fat-soluble vitamins. Anyway, not nearly as many things as the small intestine absorbs. And so what happens is that if your guts aren't moving properly, right? If you're not having a bowel movement every day or preferably a couple times a day, what's happening? Well, stuff's hanging around in your colon for a really long time. And why is that a problem? Well, that's a problem because your liver, which is the detoxifying organ, is dumping poison into your guts all day to get rid of it. And if it hangs out in your colon for a couple of days, your colon just reabsorbs all the toxins, right? That's not good. So if your colon's already gorked up and mad and you do a cleanse on your liver and really dump a lot of toxins, well, that's a really bad idea, okay? Because now you're going to reabsorb really a lot of toxins and you're kind of missing the point of the cleanse. So it's really important to do the order. We start with the colon, which is the large intestine, right? Then we do the small intestine, get him cleaned out, and then we do the liver and the gallbladder. All right, so that when we do the liver and the gallbladder, we can shoot them into a nice clean poop chute and get everything out and not hanging around for a week in our colon to get reabsorbed. Okay, those organs are already stressed enough if they're not cleansed. So do the intestines first, and then do the liver and gallbladder. Okay. All right. Another problem with herbal cleansers is weird stuff. Sometimes there's some very unnatural weird stuff. And there's very few instances where a hose getting poked into you anywhere is a great idea. All right. Again, let's go back to what's natural. What's the best way to do things? And, you know, sometimes an enema can be a beneficial good thing. But if you're doing the herbs right and the foods right, you don't need to get hooked up to a hose and blast it out. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about some specific cleanses and supports. All right, we're going to talk about specific things you can do and specific organs and systems and how we're going to deal with that. Okay. So first of all, one fun thing you can do is oil pulling. And oil pulling's been going on for 3,000 years in India. They've been doing this forever. And it's one of the staples of Ayurvedic medicine. So there's basically 3 medical systems in the world. 3 natural medical systems. One is Chinese medicine, traditional Chinese medicine. One is Ayurvedic medicine, which is India. Okay. And then there's Western herbalism, which is just a baby. Okay. From Europe and North America. But those other guys have, you know, a couple of thousand years on us with this stuff. Anyway, it's very simple. Basically what you do is you take some coconut oil and you swish it around in your mouth for 15 or 20 minutes. And it's just about a tablespoon of oil. You put it in your mouth. And sometimes people do it with olive oil or coconut or sesame oil, something like that. But I like coconut oil better for 2 reasons. One, it tastes better. And coconut oil has all kinds of nice, you know, healing and nutritive properties of its own that are good for your tissues, for your mouth, right? So, and it tastes better. And it's got more nutritional benefits. Anyway, I would recommend doing it with coconut oil. So there's been a lot of studies on this, you know, real medical scientific studies, not just bloggers on the internet that copied something off some other blogger on the internet, but real research. And it shows that the oil pulling really is beneficial. It has a marked significant benefit to preventing tooth decay and gingivitis. It whitens the teeth. It improves the breath. It helps all kinds of oral infections and troubles, gingivitis, periodontal disease, stuff like that. And it all makes good sense because the oil, just the mechanics of the oil, make it harder for bacteria to attach to your teeth. That's how you get cavities, is from bacteria in your mouth. That's how you get gingivitis, is from bacteria in your mouth. So keeping everything slippery is good, right? And it also flushes them out. But it also scientifically, and I've read the papers, and again, this isn't some wackadoodle on YouTube. This is real researchers doing real science. It improves eczema and psoriasis. How does it do that, right? It improves liver complaints. It improves temporomandibular joint stuff, and that's probably just from exercise and movement. But it does all these crazy good things. So it's worth doing. So how do you one theory on how it affects these other organs is that in traditional Chinese medicine, that model says that, you know how your body, you know, they do acupuncture, right? And you've got all these points on your body and all these meridians where the chi flows, right? And if you, and the, you know, your lung meridian has points on your hand and your arm, you know, and so you can poke those points and it'll do things for your lungs. And so the meridians go through the various organ systems and the various organs, and that's why they're named what they're named. You know, it's not just that your lung meridian only does things for your lungs, but it's just that that's one of the places where it has a big impact. Anyway, the Chinese model says that there's also a map of your body on your tongue, and there's a map on your hand, and there's a map on your ear. Okay, so you can do the body points, or you can fix your neck and lung and knee joint and whatever you want by poking your ear too. And there's a map on your tongue of the same system. There's just like little repeats of the system everywhere. And so the Chinese say that by cleansing the tongue, you're cleansing, you know, the acupuncture points and the meridians of the whole body, because the tongue is your whole body. Okay, your ear is your whole body. Your foot and your hand are your whole body too, from an energetic standpoint. And so, anyway, we may never know exactly how it works or what the mechanism is, but the data is very clear that something's going on, and it's good research that there are benefits. I have a brother who's a neurosurgeon, and he started doing acupuncture. You know, he went and got some training and started doing acupuncture, and I had to bust his chops a little bit because he's the brain surgeon, prove it or stick it in your ear guy, you know. And I'm the funky herbalist that willing to think about anything, you know. Anyway, he started doing this acupuncture, and it was really being very effective and working. And I says to him, Mark, how does that acupuncture work, right? And he says, I don't know how it works. He says, I don't know if it's endorphins or chi or little green goblins, but I can measure that it works, right? It's the same thing with oil pulling. You know, we're not exactly sure what's going on, but there's good research that shows that it's going on. So that's all we care about, and we can it can be chi or endorphins or little green goblins or whatever we want, but it's something. It's probably not little green goblins. Anyway, it's actually funny. The follow-up story to the brother who's an acupuncturist is I talked to him recently, and I said, so you're still doing the acupuncture? And he says, no, I had to give up on the acupuncture. And I was disappointed. I said, oh, no, why not? Why is that? Was it not working? He says, oh, no. The problem with acupuncture is you can do about anything with it. And I probably ought to be doing brain surgery, not working on somebody's tennis elbow. So he says, there's a guy down the street who's really good. I send him down there, unless it's a brain thing. Sometimes I'll do those, but mostly I'm sending them down the road to get their lumbago fixed somewhere else. So I can do brain surgery. So that's probably a good idea. I mean, I went to school for a long time. There's not a lot of guys in town that can do brain surgery, so it's probably good that he's doing that. But anyway, all right. So how do you do it? So first thing in the morning, before you eat anything, and before you brush your teeth or do anything, you take a spoonful of coconut oil or sesame oil and stick it in your mouth and swish it around between your teeth. And it doesn't have to be too vigorous or too crazy, you know, and do it for 15 or 20 minutes. Don't do it too hard. Just gentle, swish, swish, swish while you're making breakfast or reading the paper or whatever you do in the morning. There's no reason to wear out your jaw muscles and get tired of doing this. And as you swish, the oil will expand a little bit in volume and it will discolor a little bit. So that's weird. That's doing something, right? When you're finished, if you're using coconut oil, don't spit it in the drain of your sink or it'll get solid and plug your sink up. Don't ask me how I know that. It's embarrassing. Spit it in the trash can, but don't swallow it, right? Because it's a detox thing. The reason we're doing it is to get junk out of our body, not to put it deeper in our body. Okay, so don't swallow the oil, spit it out, and do that 3 or 4 times a week, and that's it. Once in a while, people that start doing oil pulling, sometimes they'll start getting headaches, and a lot of people say the theory is that that's a detox kind of a headache thing. They don't last very long, and it clears up. It stops happening pretty soon. So just kind of push through that. If you have an infection in your mouth, you can put a little tincture in there, or a little bit of a drop or two of an essential oil you like, if you want to do that with your oil, and swish that around. If you had gingivitis or periodontal disease, we have a formula called periodontal that you could put that tincture in there and swish, swish, swish. We have one called tooth abscess. You could swish, swish, swish that for 15 minutes. That'd be great for you if you have a bad tooth, okay, or gingivitis or something. Okay, so let's talk about the skin, all right? So we can have cute skin like this lady. So the skin is the largest organ of your body, all right? And in some respects, it serves as an accessory organ for elimination of toxins. When the liver and the kidneys get overwhelmed, the body sends things to the skin, because the skin's got lots of glands. Maybe she can deal with it, right? And so that's why you get eczema and psoriasis. It's not because there's something wrong with your skin. It's because there's something wrong with your liver and your kidneys. They're mad. They're overworked. The skin is also very adept at absorbing some kinds of chemicals. Some things won't go through the skin at all, but some things it really likes to suck them up. There's lots of herbs that it really likes to suck up. If you can use tinctures topically for a lot of things, and it'll soak right through. Some of the chemicals in some of the tinctures are teeny, and they'll soak right through. We talked about, why were we talking about it? We talked about sagebrush for pain as a tincture. I guess we were just talking about sagebrush. But anyway, it was for the rheumatoid arthritis. Anyway, in the autoimmune lecture. Anyway, some of those chemicals, comfrey, sagebrush, a lot of chemicals in herbs are very penetrating. That's great, very easily to absorb. But there's also some bad chemicals that your skin likes to absorb. So be really careful. And, try and buy lotions and creams and stuff. If you're going to do that, try and buy them that don't have so much junk in them, because they really can be absorbed. And especially with these little guys with the bare bottoms, be careful what you put on them, because their skin is really, really absorbent and fun. All right. It's not all tough and calloused like ours is. So the skin has two sets of glands. It has sweat glands for perspiration, and it has sebaceous glands, they call them. And the sebaceous glands produce oils and waxes that lubricate the hairs so they can get out of the follicle, lubricate the skin and protect it. Make your hair shiny and pretty. Ducks have sebaceous glands that if you ever watch a duck, he'll lean back and he's got a big sebaceous gland on his tailhead, and he'll grab some of that grease and grease himself up so he's waterproof. So anyway, the other thing is that the skin is constantly replacing itself. The skin you have today, the top layer of epidermis is not the skin you had last week. It's always exfoliating and making new skin all the time. And so to cleanse the skin, we need to accomplish two things. First of all, we have to exfoliate all the dead skin cells. And second, we have to flush out those little glands, the sweat glands and the sebaceous glands. So the first step is to hydrate. You have to have a lot of water in you, okay? And you ought to have a lot of water in you anyway. We don't drink nearly enough water. And a lot of the stuff we drink is actually making us more dehydrated. Anything caffeinated that you drink you're losing water. Okay, alcohol, you're losing water. We need to be drinking water sources that are water. All right. Even Gatorade and sports drinks like that, which are really great. They've got ads on TV and stuff that, you drink this after the football game and it'll rehydrate you. Well, it'll replace your electrolytes and that's good, but there's not enough water in there. Ideally, for those kind of products, you would double the volume with water. So you'd get the bottle of, Gatorade or whatever, and get another bottle the same size of water, and that's what you drink. You can drink them separately, but that gives you the proper level of fluid versus electrolytes. Okay. But make sure you're drinking lots of water. And ideally it should be good water, get an RO filter and get some good water. Spring water, distilled water, water that's been through reverse osmosis. Those are all good options. You can go to the grocery store and buy any of those things. You can buy distilled water at the grocery store. But, we want to clean things out. We're having a cleanse, right? So we're going to have as few toxins as possible. You can also do dry brushing, and this is how we're going to exfoliate the skin. Okay. Once or twice a day, you just get a dry brush and you brush your skin, and that gets the dead cells knocked off. And it is also really good for the lymphatic system. We'll talk about that in a minute. But dry brushing is a good idea. And it can't do any harm at all to you. You can also use a loofah sponge, and the loofah comes from some kind of squash or something, isn't it? Some kind of plant. Anyway, it's pretty coarse, and you don't need to do that all the time. But once a month or so, take the loofah sponge to the shower and scrub off good. Every couple of weeks, every month, and that'll do a real deep cleaning of the skin and really exfoliate, really clean things up and off. It also is really good for stimulating circulation. It's really good for moving the lymphatics. And again, we'll talk about that in a minute. It's important for that sponge to dry out completely after each use, or it'll grow bugs. Okay. But the other thing you can do is throw it in the microwave after you use it for about 20 seconds, and that'll kill the bugs. Or you can get a plastic one. They make synthetic loofah sponges. Don't put that in the microwave. That's a bad idea. You can also do steams and saunas if your health permits, and not everybody should do this. Okay, this is often a bad idea. If you have, if you're pregnant, you shouldn't do it. If you have, heart disease or blood pressure issues or liver and kidney issues, or if you're taking medications that make it so you can't sweat, if you're taking very much sage, that'll make it so you can't hardly sweat. And so, don't do a steam or a sauna unless you know it's okay. But what's it doing? Well, the steam and sauna is making you sweat like crazy, and that flushes out all those glands, the sweat glands, but also the sebaceous glands. It just moves things. It's really a good idea. In fact, I would say a requirement to drink a couple of big glasses of water before you go in there, because you got to have something to flush it out with, right? Does that make sense? Don't stay in for more than 15 or 20 minutes, and take somebody with you so that if you get a little dizzy or you pass out or something, somebody can help you out, right? If you have any trouble or problems, somebody's there. If you feel dizzy at all, if you feel nauseous at all, get out of the sauna. Don't go in there and fall asleep and have a nap in the sauna. That's a bad idea. Okay, you don't want to be in there more than 15 or 20 minutes. After you come out of the sauna, it's really important to just sit and rest for about 10 minutes. Just let your body cool back to normal temperature naturally. It's a really bad idea, and the Finns and the Swedes like to do this, but it's a really bad idea to sit in the sauna and get really hot and then go out and jump into an ice bath. That's very shocking and bad for your body. All right. Let your body cool down naturally for about 10 minutes. And then if you want to jump in an ice bath, go ahead, but I wouldn't. I see no medicinal benefit to jumping into a lake that has a hole carved in the ice. Also, don't put anything on your skin before you go in the sauna. Don't put lotions or oils or anything like that, because we want all the pores open so they can drain, right? We don't want to plug them up with lotions and salves and things. All right. Another thing that's really good for cleaning and supporting the skin is cupping. This is Chinese cupping therapy. And I don't know why we call it Chinese cupping, because everybody did it. I mean, the American Indians did it. Everybody in Asia did it. The Europeans did it. I was talking to my dad once about this, and he says, "Oh yeah, I used to do that when I was a kid." And I looked at him. I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, we did it with a Coke bottle for when we had blisters and abscesses and stuff." And I says, "What did you do?" And he says, "Well, we took a Coke bottle and you stick a match in there for a second to heat up the air, and then you stick it on the cyst or whatever, and it would suck it open and pop it and pull all the gunk out of it." So even kids in Utah in the 30s were cupping. And my dad wasn't Chinese, so it could be anybody's cupping. Anyway, there's two ways to do it. One is to heat the inside of the cup, and they used to use horns. The Indians used buffalo horns. The Chinese probably used yak horns. I don't know what they used. So there's two ways to do it. You can either heat up the air and stick it on the skin, and as the air cools, it'll pull the skin up. Or you can drill a hole in the end of the horn and suck on it and put a piece of wax on the end. Those were the two ways anciently that they did it. But like I said, every civilization seems like was doing cupping. And And so, there's an old saying, from the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses comes all truth, right? And so, everybody was doing it for a really long time, so it must have been working pretty good. Nowadays, they have vacuum suckers, that you can put on the cups and suck on them, little hand pumps and things. But the horns worked good. I still have a set of glass cups for fire cupping. We call it fire cupping when you stick the fire in there. So I get a pair of forceps and dunk it in alcohol and light it on fire and stick it in the glass cup and put it on. It's all very fun and cool and dramatic, but it doesn't work any better than sucking on them. But it's much cooler. Anyway, as the vacuum is created, either by sucking on it or by the air cooling, and hot air takes up more space than cold air. That's why heating the air works. So you heat up the air and it gets really busy bouncing around. And then when it cools off, it takes less space, and now it's going to create a vacuum. And you can see on this gal, that the skin is going right up into those cups. It's making little hills inside the cup. See that? And you don't leave the cups on for very long, just for a couple of minutes. And it's really an extraordinary tool for a lot of different kinds of health issues, especially lymphatic stuff and blood circulation stuff. Most of the physical things we do, the massage therapy and the, lymphatic protocols for moving lymph, they're all compressive. We're pushing and squishing the tissue, right? And that's better than nothing, but it's kind of the opposite of what we want. What we want to do is open it up and get it moving, right? And the best way in the world to do that is with a cup and with a little suction. And so you put the suction on there and it pulls fluid up into the tissue and it gets everybody moving and happy. So it's really, really useful for moving lymphatics. And once the cup's on, you can even move it along. You can pull the cup along while it's still on the skin. I usually put some oil on the person. And I like coconut oil. Put a little coconut oil on there so they're a little bit slickery, and that makes the cup stick better. But then you can move it around a little bit if you want to, or you can just leave it. Sometimes when you're cupping, it makes a little hickey on them. Not a little hickey, a great big hickey. And they say traditionally that the more toxic the area is, the darker the hickey will be. I don't know. That's what I think. But I'm kind of old-fashioned. That's what the old Chinese guys thought too. And these aren't bruises. They never turn brown and yellow and purple like bruises do. And they never hurt like bruises do. And in a couple of days, they're gone. But you look like a pepperoni pizza for a little while. I don't know if you watched the Olympics, the last Summer Olympics. I don't know, was it the last one? With Michael Phelps. Anyway, he was a swimmer and he was winning all kinds of gold medals. But, he always had pepperonis on his shoulders and his back, because between every match they were cupping him because he was getting kind of old. And they wanted to loosen things up so he could swim good. Anyway, the marks go away in a few days, and it's kind of cool to look like a pepperoni pizza for a few days. That's fun. Why not? But it's one of the most useful tools. It's a very distinctive tool. It's a really great tool. I use it in my naturopath practice. Make sure that you drink a lot of water, right? Because there's going to be some toxin release and you're going to want to flush that out. So it's a good idea to drink a lot of water before you have a cupping session. And don't do it, every day for 3 days. That's too much. That's too much. You'll feel sick if you do that. You'll feel sick from the toxins. But do it once a week. If you're inclined to do that and need it. It's really good for muscle pain sometimes. It's really good for nerve pain sometimes. But mostly it just gets toxins out and gets the circulation moving and gets things going like they need to go. Okay. So let's talk about the lymphatic system. We've kind of been talking about it anyway. Remember, we said in the immune system module, if you were watching that one this morning, that you have another second circulatory system, which is your lymphatic system. Okay. And it goes all through your body. It runs right along your blood vessels most of the time. And it basically is this really extensive network of vessels for moving blood plasma back to your circulatory system. Because when your blood gets squeezed through smaller and smaller capillaries, the liquid fraction of the blood gets squeezed out through the cells of the blood vessels. And the lymphatics and the blood vessels do this too, but the lymphatics collect about 15% of that stuff goes into the lymphatic system. The rest of it goes back into the blood vessels. And the lymphatic system moves it up into your chest, and it gets dumped into your vena cava, which is the big blood vessel, the big vein that goes into your chest. And so there's no pump on this system. The heart is a pump for your circulatory system. The lymphatic system doesn't have a pump. The only way to move lymph is either by muscle contraction or cupping. Cupping is a really great way to move lymph because it's decompressing. It pulls and moves things. So the lymphatics move plasma, which is the liquid of your blood, but they also move antibodies. They also move white blood cells. All along the route, there's lymph nodes where white blood cells get together and have parties and talk about what germs they saw this week and what antibodies we should make for next week. And so it's really important for the lymph to move. It's really important for the lymph to keep going. There's little one-way valves in it to keep it from going backwards. But the only way to get it moving is for you to move, is for muscle contracture to move the lymph and squeeze your tissues and squirt the stuff up to the next level, and the little valve shut. And it just keeps going up until it gets to your chest and dumps in. So like I said, it only moves through muscle contraction. So exercise is a really good way to move your lymphatics. Jumping on one of those little mini tramps is a good idea. We got this picture here. This guy is jumping a little higher than necessary. Right after this picture, they found him in the corner of the room all balled up and bruised. But don't jump that high, okay? You can also, they make these vibration machines, and I own one of these lifetime vibe machines. They're great. But anyway, that jangles all the tissue and that moves lymphatics, okay? Does a lot of other good things too. But anyway, those are the two principal ways of moving it, besides dry brushing, which also moves it, okay? So dry brushing, in addition to cleaning your skin, exfoliating your dead skin cells, dry brushing also moves lymph, okay? So you're brushing and brushing and brushing, and the direction of the brushing is important if we're going to move lymph with it, right? Doesn't matter which way you go if you're getting dead cells off your skin, but you might as well do both. So what you do is you start at the extremities and you work your way in, okay? You don't brush out, you brush in, and you brush everything in toward your chest, toward your thoracic duct. It's right here. Just keep brushing till everybody's at the thoracic duct, and that'll dump into your vena cava, okay? Basically, you're just from the extremities to the clavicle, all right? It's on the right side if you're keeping score. Okay. Oh, what do you know? We are going to talk about some herbs today. I wondered when we'd get to that. We have a lymphatic support formula here. There are some herbs that really move lymph. My favorite one of all is cleavers. Calendula and echinacea move lymph too. Devil's claw moves lymph. Cayenne makes everything more elastic. That's why cayenne's good for blood pressure, because it makes your veins more stretchy. And so it's good for high or low blood pressure because it makes them more stretchy and more elastic. So they expand or contract to the level they're supposed to keep your pressure normal. Well, they do the same thing for the lymphatics. The cayenne does. It just makes it all better. It's all more flexible and stretchy and good. All right. And that's the formula. And, if you're wanting to do a lymphatic cleanse, I would take that formula a couple of times a day for a week, We also talked about the cupping for lymphatics. We've kind of beaten this dead horse, but I love it. Here's the fire cupping. That's what I was talking about. That's just fun. You can do lymphatic massage and drainage, and there's all kinds of techniques in schools and things where they teach you that. And that's great. That's better than nothing, but it's nothing like cupping because it's compressive instead of decompressive. Decompressing is a vastly better situation. Anyway. Okay. So that's how we do the skin. That's how we do the lymphatics. Now let's talk about the kidneys. All right. So the kidneys are really vital to eliminating a lot of the metabolic wastes in our body. Okay. The liver gets rid of a lot of things, but the kidneys get rid of a lot of things too. A lot of the artificial ingredients in our foods are eliminated through the kidneys. A lot of the pharmaceuticals that we take are eliminated through the kidneys. And so, the foods and the food additives and the pharmaceuticals and all the things we're doing are really putting a lot of extra load on our kidneys. So it's a good idea to clean those rascals out once in a while. They're working harder in the 21st century than they've ever had to work because of the toxin levels that we have and the food. Well, toxin levels, we call it food, but it ain't. All right. So let's talk about it. So the first phase is to flush them out, to cleanse the kidneys. Okay. So it's a 2-phase process. The first thing we want to do is using water and herbs. We want to flush them out. So the job of the kidneys is to retain water. A lot of times people say to me, I know my kidneys are working because I pee a lot. And I say, no, that means your kidneys aren't working. Their job is to keep water in, not to let it all go. And so unless you're a fish, a freshwater fish, saltwater fish have kidneys like us that keep the water in because the salt wants to pull all the water out of them. But if you're a freshwater fish, your kidneys are wired backward and they pee way more. Okay. But basically, you drink more water, and that tells your kidneys to relax because there's plenty of water. We can let some go, number one. And number two, you take some herbs that are diuretic herbs, and there's a lot of them. About anything green is a diuretic herb, honestly. But there's some that are really great. You know, dandelion, burdock, nettles, parsley. Who else is a great diuretic? Corn silk, cleavers, you know, celery. There's a lot of really good diuretic plants that make you pee more. And basically what they do is they go into the kidney and they go, come on, guys, lighten up. Let some of this water go, right? And so the kidneys say, okay, and they let more water go. And as a result, there's a lot of sludge and crystals and junk and gunk and poisons that are getting flushed out better, okay? So increasing water intake and taking some diuretic herbs are the way to go. And by the way, I know I've already stood on this soapbox a little bit, but we are not drinking near enough water. Okay. And I'm as guilty of that as anybody. We're not drinking enough water. We need to be drinking more water. All right. And when I say water, I mean water. I don't mean Pepsi. All right. I mean, anything caffeinated, you know, makes you lose water. So although if you're doing a kidney cleanse, Pepsi's probably a good idea. No, it's not. Forget I said that. Don't write that down. Anyway, caffeine increases urination too, the way some of the diuretic herbs do, in a different way. But anyway, that's not the point. So how much water should you drink every day? Well, there's all kinds of things on the internet. The way that I think is a good way to figure out is you take your ideal body weight, not your actual body weight, but your ideal body weight, and you divide it by 2 in pounds, not kilograms. So if you weigh 100 pounds, you divide by 2 and drink that many fluid ounces of water a day. Okay. And that's a lot of water. So if you weighed 200 pounds, or if you ought to weigh 200 pounds, you know, you ought to be drinking 100 ounces of water in 24 hours, you know, ideally, and nobody does, you know, that's a lot of water, but that would be really great. I mean, that would be, for this flushing system, that would be really great, you know, while you're doing the cleanse. In real life, you're going to have a hard time drinking that much water. But the closer you get to that number, the happier your kidneys are going to be, whether you're cleansing or not. They like having a lot of extra water. Okay. Very, very hard to make a crystal in a very dilute solution. Okay. So it's very hard to make a kidney stone in a very dilute solution. So drink more water. And I would say, make sure there aren't lots of minerals in the water if you're drinking it for those purposes. Right. So distilled water is really good. I would say a good flushing of the kidneys is a good idea twice a year. I would do it in the spring, and I would do it again before winter comes. It's a good time right now to do a cleanse. Okay, so this is the formula that I use. And you could use any combination of these herbs and plus the other half dozen I mentioned earlier. It doesn't matter. This is just a good formula that's got everybody you need in it and makes you pee a lot. Okay, and so this is a good flushing formula. It's called kidney mo pee-pee as opposed to less pee-pee, right? So, all right. The next one, the next phase, so we said there were 2 phases. The first phase is flush them and clean them. The next phase is to restore and protect and heal the kidneys, all right? And there are some herbs, not very many, but there's some herbs that have a very strong impact on healing and supporting the kidneys. Okay. They're really nourishing. They're really protective. And a few of them are actually restorative and can heal and restore kidneys to a degree. And you can take these anytime to make your kidneys happy. But again, I would do it like I meant it at least twice a year. And everything we've talked about, all the formulas we talked about in this thing, they're all in the cleanse kit. Okay, so you don't have to go buy 15 different things. Just get the box and do it. My kidneys like to do this more often than twice a year. You know, for some reason, I'm very attracted to some of these plants and just want them, you know. So, you know, astragalus is a good one. Chamomile is a good one. Cleavers, evening primrose, cordyceps, licorice, milkweed root is a really good one. Nettle seed's the best one. Nettle seed is the best one. Nettle leaf's a good one for the other project, for the diuretic flushing project, but the seed is the kidney restorative. Romania, Brigham tea is a good one. Birch bark is a good one. Yarrow is a good one. But anyway, my favorite ones are nettle seed, milkweed root, and cleavers are the ones I like, and chamomile and astragalus. I guess I have a lot that I really like. It's a problem. All right, here's the formula. It's called Kidney Builder, okay? So this is for phase 2 of the kidney cleanse. First, you do the flush and clean, and then you do the build and heal and restore, okay? But if you have somebody that's having trouble with their kidneys, this is a really, really supportive, good formula for them. I've had some dogs that had really bad kidney numbers, and we put them on this, and they got better. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Their BUNs and creatinines start going down a little bit, and they do better and feel better. All right. Now here's an optional thing. You don't have to do this one, but the third step for a kidney cleanse is for stones. If you're inclined to have stones, some people struggle with kidney stones, and some people never do. And so the third phase, it's an optional phase, is to deal with kidney stones. If I was a person that had a kidney stone, I take this formula 3 or 4 times a day with lots and lots of water while I'm trying to get rid of that stone. And I've had a lot of cases over the years where those stones come flying out. This is a really good formula. And we'll talk about the herbs in it and why they're in there in a second. If I was prone to kidney stones and wanted to prevent them, I would take this formula twice a day for 1 week of each month, just to clean things out, right? So let's talk about these herbs. So we've got gravel root, dandelion leaf, lobelia, marshmallow root, parsley root, and ginger. So what's the formula? Why are we doing that? You know, we don't just throw these in here. We're thinking about things. First of all, gravel root is a rock star for dissolving rocks. Okay. Really good for kidney stones or gallstones. Dandelion leaf is a diuretic. Okay, so we're increasing flow. So first we're going to dissolve that kidney stone a little bit, see if we can make it a little smaller. Then we're going to increase flow and push on it a little bit, right? And then we're going to give lobelia. So lobelia is an antispasmodic, muscle relaxant. Why the heck are we doing that? Well, where's the stone? It's usually in your ureter, right? Or in your urethra. So it's in one of the little tubes, either between your kidney and your bladder, or between your bladder and the outside world. And so those tubes are lined with smooth muscle. And what happens when things aren't moving? Well, when things aren't moving, they squeeze harder to make it move, right? Because muscles are dumb. And so the lobelia relaxes the muscles so that things can move along and not get squished. So we're dissolving the rock with gravel root. We're increasing urine flow to try and pressure it out a little. We're relaxing the muscles so that it doesn't have that resistance. And then we're going to give some marshmallow root. And why are we doing that? Well, because marshmallow root is the most soothing, slippery, wonderful stuff in the world. And it soothes the irritation of the ureter or the urethra. So now that inflammation goes down and it's happy. It's a little more slippery. That's good, right? That helps the rock move. We're going to give parsley root, Parsley root's a good diuretic, but it's also really good at dissolving rocks. And a little pinch of ginger. And what's the ginger for? Well, ginger is a good catalyst. It warms things up. It gets things moving. And so that's why it's in there. So that's the formula. That's the kidney no stones formula. So if you've got stones, do this 3 or 4 times a day, drinking lots of distilled water. If you don't have stones, but you like to get them, do it twice a day for 1 week of every month. And I've had good luck with that with folks. All right. So here's the formulas. We just went through all those, but remember the 3 phases for the kidney: flush and cleanse, restore and protect, and get rid of the rocks. And that one's optional, obviously. If you don't ever get kidney stones, don't worry about that one. Okay. So it doesn't matter in the protocol when you do skin cleansing. It doesn't matter in the protocol when you do lymphatic cleansing. It doesn't matter when you do kidney cleansing, okay? Because those are all independent systems, okay? It matters a lot how you do the digestive system, and we talked about this already. So we're going to start from the bottom and work our way up, all right? We're going to clean the colon first. So here's a nice picture, and you can tell that this guy's colon needs to be cleansed because it's bright orange, for heaven's sakes. If you ever get up and notice that your colon is bright orange, you should do a cleanse right away. That little wiggly worm thing, is my mouse working? See this little squiggly thing coming off his colon? That's your appendix. It's just a little bitty guy about as big as your finger, unless it gets full of pus and explodes. In most species that are herbivores, the appendix is way bigger. I mean, they call it a cecum. But like a cow or a horse or a kangaroo, they have big cecums. Rabbits have big cecums. Anyway, they're great big. And it's a place where digestion, where bacterial fermentation happens. So if you're a herbivore, why are we talking about herbivores? I don't know. Let's talk about herbivores. I like herbivores. So if you're, there's 2 ways to eat grass, to digest grass, because guess what? Mammals can't. Mammals don't have a single enzyme for digesting grass. So how do the horses and cows make a living? That's weird. Well, they have to digest it with a little help from their friends. And we talked about the billions of bacteria that live in our gut and help us digest things. But man, the cows and the horses really need those guys. So the cows, there's 2 ways to do it. One is to pre-digest the food before it gets to your small intestine, right? And so cows and goats and sheep and deer and other ruminants have 4 stomachs. And those 4 stomachs, one of them is a big 32-gallon vat that's basically a fermentation chamber where all the bacteria dissolve all of the cellulose in all the plant matter and turn it into simple sugar so the cow can absorb it. Okay, so that's how cows eat grass and make a living. The other way to do it, which I think is a worse way, which is the way that horses and rabbits and kangaroos do it, is they do cecal digestion. So their appendix is great, big, and large. And that's where the bacterial fermentation happens. But the bad news is that your appendix is between your small intestine, where all the nutrient absorption happens, and your large intestine, where very little nutrient absorption happens. Mostly just water, a couple of vitamins, and a mineral or 2 in the colon getting absorbed. So if you're a cecal digester and you want the nutrients from the food, you have to recycle it and go through again. So if you think that through, you are a lot smarter to be a cow than a bunny rabbit, okay? In fact, if you restrict a rabbit from having access to its own pellets, its own poop, it'll starve to death. They have to eat it. That's how they get the nutrients that the bugs broke down for them. So kangaroos, horses, and bunny rabbits and other cecal digesters picked the hard way to do that. It would have been smarter to get more stomachs. Okay. That's your veterinary digestion lesson for the day. I know you were all signed up extra special for that. All right. Okay, so we're going to start with the colon. First things first, right? We talked about this. We always start with the colon first because starting with the liver or the small intestine is just going to dump stuff into the colon and it's going to get mad. All right. If it's already compromised, that's a bad idea. It'll just reabsorb the toxins and you're worse off than you were before. So like we mentioned before, the function of the large intestine is to reabsorb water, and it absorbs some vitamins and minerals. And everything else gets eliminated through pooping, right? That's the plan. So because of this enthusiasm that it has for reabsorbing water, right? Because otherwise you have diarrhea. If you don't reabsorb all the water, you have diarrhea. You don't have a firm stool, and that's no fun. That's why you get diarrhea, because your muscle spasms, right? Diarrhea is usually from a spasming of the intestines so that things get shot out before they've had time to lay around in the colon and get the water reabsorbed. That's why you have diarrhea, okay? And that's why antispasmodics like cramp bark and lobelia and things like that and chamomile, which is a nervine antispasmodic, the mints, which are nervines that are antispasmodic. The reason that shuts the diarrhea down is because it shuts your guts down and says, look, quit being so hyper, relax, right? And then the colon goes back to work, sucking up all the extra water. So there's your human digestion lesson. Anyway, the large intestine, because it's designed to absorb things in the water, it's really good at absorbing toxins, reabsorbing toxins. And so it's very, very important for things to keep moving, okay? And so you ought to be having 1 or 2 well-formed bowel movements every day, okay? If you're on the once a week plan, keep reading. We'll fix that, okay? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about enemas and colonics and hydrotherapy. All right, this is somewhere where a lot of people get really excited about this is what you got to do to clean your colon out. And they recommend enemas and colonics and things. It's the same thing. An enema and colonics, the same thing. It's just the same 2 words for the same thing. And this is how they're going to mechanically flush your colon out. And, you know, enemas can be a really tremendous thing. In some ways, enemas can save your life, because one way is that the colon absorbs a lot of water. If somebody's severely dehydrated, you can give them an enema of water, and it's almost as good as an IV, because they'll suck the water up through their colon. Okay, so that's, for a life-saving emergency measure, that's a good idea. If you don't have an IV, that's the apocalypse, use an enema, right? They're also a way sometimes to get herbs into people that you can't get them into them orally, but that's pretty rare too. You know, why wouldn't you be able to get them into them orally? Well, maybe they're unconscious all the time, if they're in a coma or something, or maybe they're vomiting and can't keep anything down at all. But honestly, I would just give that guy a tincture, because it's all going to get absorbed before it gets to his stomach anyway. You know, the tinctures are so absorbent. But, you know, that said, you know, other than severe blood loss, severe dehydration, you know, that's the only time I would use enemas. Otherwise, it's not really sensible to use it for cleansing. There's some risk to doing it. You can perforate the bowel, which is not at all helpful to your colon, actually. Write that down. Also, if you use enemas a lot, it can lead to dependency. And like I said, you can scrape up the mucous membrane lining of your colon and scar it, so now it doesn't work as well. You can perforate it, so now you get peritonitis and die. You know, nothing spoils a nice enema like a perforated bowel. Now, there are some things medicinally that have been done with enemas that have some good effects. You know, there was a Gershon Institute down in Central America that was doing some really good cancer work. And part of what they were doing was coffee enemas. And they would do the coffee enema and then have the guy lay on his side. And you say, well, what the heck's going on there? Well, what the heck's going on there is that you're laying on your side, and the pharmaceuticals, the herbal things in the coffee, there are some, one of which is caffeine, get right into the liver because they're soaking right through your colon wall, right? And so it was stimulating the liver, and it made the liver happy and cleanse itself, and that was good. You know, in an extreme case where you're going to die and you want to try something, and they had some good data on that. So, but don't do it all the time to clean your colon out. Okay, that's not a good idea. Okay, so it's also important to know that there's lots easier and better ways to clean your colon out than sticking a hose up your caboose. One is with proper hydration. So like I said, just drink a lot of water. If you drink a lot of water, It'll clean things out. And I keep telling you, Americans are drastically underhydrated. Please drink more water. That'd be really good for you. And so most Americans are also constipated because they're drastically underhydrated. Again, if you want to really clean yourself out with water, divide your ideal body weight by 2 and drink that many ounces of water in 24 hours. The other thing you can do, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here because you guys are, interested in herbs, you probably eat pretty well. Hopefully. I had a really good hamburger for lunch, so it was an emergency. Anyway, you're probably eating a lot of produce and vegetables and things, and that's really good. That's another fiber, right? Fiber is a good deal. Things like squash and pumpkin and root vegetables have a lot of fiber in them. They're really good for cleaning your guts out. Okay. You want to be heavy on the real produce and light on the starchy processed stuff. That's basically what it is, and that'll get the job done. Okay. Oops, I keep going backwards. There's also some herbs that are good for helping clean the colon out, and they do that through various mechanisms. One is what herbalists call an aperient. So pumpkin would be an aperient. An aperient is just a gentle, mild, heavy fiber bulking laxative. That's what an aperient is. So pumpkin, squash, psyllium is an aperient, right? Flaxseed is an aperient. Slippery elm and marshmallow are aperients. Those kinds of guys. The other way to clean things out is to get it moving, right? By hyperactivating the gut. Remember, we said that when you have diarrhea, things aren't hanging around very long, right? And that can be a way to flush some things out. Pardon the pun. And those herbs are called either cathartics or purgatives, right? They're purging in the system. Cascara sagrada is probably the most famous one. Aloe vera, the leaf, the green leafy part, not the gel that you're using for burns and stuff. The leaf is a purgative. Barberry, turkey rhubarb, all those, even licorice, if you take a good dose of licorice, all those are pretty strong purgatives. Those are herbs that you take and you don't go on a road trip. Okay. You want to be close to the bagnio if you're going to take a purgative. You can also use bentonite clay or activated charcoal to absorb toxins from the gut, and then they'll pass out. That's a good idea. That can be part of a cleanse as well. Okay, so here's a formula called colon cleanse. And it's part, like I said, everything in here, every formula we talk about is in that cleanse kit. You don't have to get separate things. But if you wanted to make it yourself, here's the recipe. It's got 2 parts bentonite clay for absorbing toxins. It's got some psyllium, which is a fibrous, mechanical, gentle laxative, and aperient. It has cascara sagrada, which is a purgative. I call cascara sagrada the believer's herb. If you ever have someone that doesn't believe in herbal medicine, give them a little spoonful of cascara sagrada. In 15 minutes, they'll believe that herbs do things to your body. And don't do it on a road trip. It's got flaxseed, which is another aperient laxative, gentle bulking laxative. It's got licorice, which is good for your guts in a lot of ways, but it's also a purgative. It's got marshmallow, which is super soothing. It's got yellow dock. Yellow dock does 2 things. First of all, it has tons of fiber in it. And second, it stimulates a lot of bile flow, which also helps move things along. So, drink lots of water and take 2 heaping teaspoons of that twice a day for about a week, and that'll clean your colon out. All right. That's the colon cleanse part. I think for this formula, you really have to do the powder. Don't make a tincture out of this because the fiber is half the show. Okay. The other thing you can do to cleanse your colon is you can do a saltwater flush. This is a pretty quick way to clean your colon out. And so what you do is you take a teaspoon or so of salt, and I would use the really good salt, like the pink Himalayan good salt, not the sodium iodine enriched stuff they give you at the store. This still will have some minerals in it, which your colon will like, right? So put a half teaspoon or teaspoon into a quart of water of salt and drink that first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. And if you follow up with another quart of water, a little later, not too much later, but in that same morning, that'll flush you right out. Okay, that's another time not to go on a road trip. But that's a good way to cleanse the colon. Okay, so now let's talk about the small intestine. We taught the colon is the large intestine. Now we're going to do the small intestine. And this guy's small intestine is toxically yellow too, or orange, so that's bad. All right, so what are we going to do? Well, there's some herbs that are really, really great for cleansing the small intestine. So what does the small intestine do? It absorbs nutrients, and it has a lot of mucus in it. Why does it have a lot of mucus in it? Well, it has a lot of mucus in it because it's right next to your stomach, which has a lot of acid in it. Okay, so the small intestine has to be lined with mucus, or it gets burned by the stomach acid when the stomach dumps into it. And so sometimes the mucus can get things gorked up. And so it's really important to have a very thin, happy layer of mucus so that nutrients can still be absorbed, but the small intestine is still protected. So what are we going to do? Well, the modern diet that we eat tends to enhance mucus production, mostly from dairy products. Dairy products enhance and thicken mucus. And so we eat too much dairy. Adults really shouldn't eat dairy, and but I do. I love cheese and I like milk, and I was a dairy vet for 20 years, so I drink more milk. But it's not good for you if you're older than 2, is what I'm saying, okay? Don't do it. Don't drink a lot of milk during a leaky gut protocol or during a cleanse. That should tell you something, right? Anyway, we have a diet that tends to make more mucus, and so we get a little gorked up in our small intestine. And so the principal purpose is to break up and pass that excess mucus, and that improves nutrient absorption. Okay, and so that's why you don't do the small intestine before you do the large intestine, because you don't want all that mucus and gunk going down there and plugging things up more, right? All right, so like we said, the principal goal is to move the mucus. There's 2 herbs that are great for that. One is mullein leaf, and one is elecampane root. And both of those plants, interestingly, are also really good expectorants and really good wormers. So we're kind of seeing a pattern here, all right? Why are they good expectorants, and why are they good for cleaning your small intestine? Because they move mucus, okay? Expectorants move mucus out of your lungs, and for a small intestine cleanse, we're going to move it out with the very same plants, okay? Why are they good wormers? Well, 2 reasons. One is mullein is also a really good cough suppressant. And the reason it's a good cough suppressant is because it's mildly sedating to the nerves that run your lungs. And so you go to sleep and quit coughing. Your body doesn't, but your lungs do, okay? It tells them to quit coughing and have a nap. Mullein does. Well, it does the same thing to the worms. See, it knocks the worms out, and they wake up and they're somewhere else. Poor little guys, they're very confused when they wake up because it's moving the mucus that the worms live in, right? So it's moving the mucus, it's knocking out the worms, so they can't say, oh dear, we're moving, we better hold on tighter. No, they just, out they go. So mullein's a good wormer, elecampane's a good wormer for the same reasons, okay? Fiber is also really important, especially insoluble fiber, which elecampane has a ton of in it. Inulin's the fiber. It's named after this genus of plant, Inula, because that's where they find the most of it. It's really, really a good plant for fiber. So, cleaning it out, it's also a really good nutritive. The inulin, that fiber, is a really good nutritive for your gut bacteria. We talked about that earlier a lot. So you're feeding the bugs that are good guys. That's good. You're pushing out the extra mucus. That's good. You're pushing out the worms. That's good. So that's great. That's going to clean your small intestine out. Okay. There's any of the other guys that have a lot of fibrous roots, burdock, yellow dock, dandelion. A lot of those guys have good fiber inulin levels in them that could be just as good. Okay. They're not good. All those other guys aren't just as good at moving the mucus. So the elecampane and the mullein are the best. Okay. All right. So this is what I recommend for the small intestine. We're going to take some mullein leaf, and we're going to take some of the prebiotic formula. Okay. And the prebiotic formula is basically just a lot of real fibrous roots that are going to feed the bugs, but they're also real fibrous roots that are going to push things out. Fiber mechanically pushes stuff out of your guts. Okay. So that's going to move the mucus. It's also going to move the stuff in your large intestine. So that's all great. Okay. Burdock, all these guys are basically high fiber. Okay. And then, of course, the elecampane also moves mucus, and the mullein moves mucus. Okay. Okay. So now that our large intestine and our small intestine are cleaned out, we can work on our liver. Because now we can dump toxins into those nice clean pipes, and the stuff will just go right out of us, and it won't be a big deal. Liver and gallbladder. So a lot of the cleanses on the internet recommend that you drink large volumes of olive oil or something, some kind of oil, to clean your liver out. And also taking intense amounts of cholagogues, like, barberry or, golden seal, something like that, herbs that make lots of bile. And they can be really uncomfortable. I mean, those are the cleanses that put you on the bathroom floor wishing you were dead. I mean, they're really, 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 really uncomfortable. And there's just no reason for that kind of intensity. There's no reason in the world for that kind of intensity. All right. I mean, you can clean the liver out and not even know you're cleaning your liver out. You don't have to beat it up so bad. A thorough cleansing of the liver can be done with all the things we're going to talk about here, and it won't bother you a bit. Okay. All right. So the liver is responsible for a lot of really critical body functions. And there's a whole lesson on the liver. We could talk about the liver for 2 hours. But one of its most important functions is getting rid of toxins by putting them in the bile and putting the bile in the intestine and flushing it out. All of those toxins go through the bile duct and out the poop chute. That's how it works. So before we cleanse the liver, it's a good idea to clean up the gallbladder, right? Because of the same principle. I'm going to dump stuff into the gallbladder from the liver. So I want the gallbladder to be happy before I do that. So, and also I want the bile ducts to be nice and clean and clear. So we do the gallbladder and bile duct formula first, before we get the liver all excited about cleaning itself out. Okay, this formula is also quite good for gallstones. And so this is the one you do first. Again, most of these plants are for dissolving gunk and even stones and getting things more liquid so they'll flow and fluidly leave the gallbladder and the bile duct. Do that one 3 times a day for 7 days. Okay. Then you can do the liver. So once we've cleaned out all the ducts, and it's not just cleaning out your bile duct, your major bile duct, it's cleaning out all the little bile ducts in your liver too. Okay. And once that's done, now we can ramp up the liver and say, okay, buddy, get working. Let's get some real toxins gone and get you cleaned out. Right. And so that's the next step is cholagogues. Cholagogues, that's the funky herbalist word for liver tonic herbs that stimulate the liver to do what it does. There's another category of liver herbs called hepatics. And they sometimes call them liver restoratives. And those ones heal and restore the liver. The liver is an amazing organ. You can about grow yourself a new liver. It's a very regenerative thing, unless you have cirrhosis of the liver. And then the reason you can't fix that is because you don't have a liver anymore. It's all scar tissue. It's all been replaced with scar tissue. So you can't fix cirrhosis with these restoratives. But if there's anything else going on, fatty liver or anything else, these are the guys to do. Okay. We're going to use both those together during the liver cleanse part of the cleanse. Okay. So we're going to do the liver support formula, which is the cholagogue that's increasing outflow of bile. And then we're going to do the liver builder. The liver builder has milk thistle, cleavers, and chamomile, which are all liver restoratives. And I'm going to do each of those during a cleanse. I'm going to do each of those 3 times a day for about a week. Okay. And you can do them both at the same time. Okay. I'm going to slurp some stump water for my throat. Because you guys have just been sitting there all day and I've had to do all the talking. All right. Candida. Not everybody has a candida infection or a candida overload. So candida is a yeast organism. And so it's a fungus, basically. But it's normal in your body. Everybody has candida, and it's a normal, happy thing. It's all over your skin. It's all over your guts, and they're happy and they're not bothering anybody. But sometimes, if your immune system's compromised or your gut bacteria, the good bugs, the good flora, is compromised, candida can cause disease. Okay. The best way to compromise your gut bacteria is to take an antibiotic, right? Because it kills a lot of the bugs, and the candida just says, "Oh wow, look at all this great real estate. We can expand." All right. And candida is immune to antibiotics, so it doesn't get hurt. Okay. The other thing is the diet of modern America and modern Europe and modern most other places is that there's a lot of sugars and starches and simple carbohydrates, and candida loves that. So we're feeding it extra. We're occasionally killing off the competition. And so what do you know? Now we have candida overgrowth. Okay. So here's what we were talking about. Okay. Simple carbohydrates are a really bad idea. And if you're going to do a candida cleanse, as part of your cleanse, lay off the donuts. Okay. Lay off the white sugar, lay off the flour, lay off the white potatoes, because your body can't tell the difference between a piece of white bread and cotton candy. As far as your body is concerned, it's all glucose by the time it's done breaking it down. And glucose is the favorite thing for candida. So just don't eat this stuff while you're doing the cleanse. And then after you do the cleanse, don't eat this stuff. All right. So let's talk about some of the symptoms. Candida overgrowth can manifest in a lot of ways. You can have fatigue. You can have digestive issues. You can have chronic skin inflammations, fungal skin infections, rashes, autoimmune things. A lot of people just have sort of a brain fog, just this lack of focus, and they can't remember their kid's name and stuff like that. Irritability, they're depressed, they're anxious. A lot of women, always it's women, get vaginal candidiasis, and it's irritated and itchy and mad. They get urinary tract infections. Men very rarely get urinary tract infections because our system's a lot longer and it's harder to get stuff up there. It's hard to get bugs into your bladder and your kidneys if you're a man. And men never get vaginal infections, which is interesting. But anyway, rectal itching, severe allergies. Anyway, and if you're craving simple carbohydrates, those are some symptoms of a candida infection, a candida overgrowth. So there's a way to tell, and this is kind of fun to do. So do this test and see if it works. I mean, if you get a positive, if you get a positive, then do the candida cleanse. It's in the cleanse kit. Okay. So there's several ways doctors do it. They can do CBCs and stool testing and urine testing and things to check for candida. But there's an easier way to do it. And what you do is you take a glass of water. It has to be a clear glass that you can see through. Take a glass of water, put it on your nightstand next to your bed. When you wake up in the morning, before you do anything else, before you brush your teeth or eat anything, spit in the water. Okay? And then come back in an hour or so and look at what's going on in that glass. And if you have candida, you'll have this sort of jellyfish-looking mass on the top of the water with little tendrils reaching down. And they're not blue like this. And they're not real jellyfish. This is actually a jellyfish that I photoshopped onto the glass of water because I couldn't find a picture of a candida jellyfish for some reason. Anyway, it'll be transparent, but you'll have this very distinctive, tentacled, weird thing hanging down from the surface of the water. But anyway, you get the idea. And so if that's the case, you probably have a candida overgrowth, and you might as well do the system. And if you're married and your spouse has a candida overgrowth, you probably do too. So you might as well both do it. Okay. Even though men don't have nearly as many symptoms. Okay. So some things we're going to not eat. We're not going to eat sugar or grains or yeast or breads or dairy or white potatoes. You can eat sweet potatoes. No white potatoes. No mushrooms. Nothing fungal. No fermented foods. And lay off the booze. Okay. A tincture dose doesn't count. But if you drink alcohol for fun, don't do that because there's a ton of sugar in it. Okay. Lots of simple carbs in booze. So those are basically, we're avoiding simple carbohydrates. So what can you eat? Well, you can eat meat, you can eat vegetables, oils, a little bit of fruit, not too much fruit because that's a lot of sugar too. But heck, that's what you're supposed to be eating anyway, right? And so it wouldn't hurt to keep doing that after the cleanse is over. Just fruits and vegetables and cut way back on the simple carbs. There were very few simple carbs 1,000 years ago. Okay. There was whole wheat. That's as close as we got, and maybe a white potato, but that's as close as we got. And there probably weren't any white potatoes. I'll tell you, I used to live in Peru, and they have dozens of kinds of potatoes, and they're all different colors, and they're all different flavors, and they're all different shapes and sizes. It's amazing. And the only potato we eat here in America is the big white ones, much starchier than anything I ate in Peru, and not nearly as tasty. Okay, so we don't want to feed the candida. That's why we're doing the candida diet during the candida cleanse. And there's some good herbs for candida. All right, there's some of them that are really great at killing it, and we have this formula, the candida formula, and these are the guys that are in it. Okay, and this candida formula is in the cleanse kit. Again, if you want to do a cleanse kit, you don't have to worry about it. But these are the guys that kill candida, either by immune stimulation or directly killing the candida. Okay, so most of them, I'm looking here, I don't see a single one that doesn't do both. So I lied. Forget that I said either. Most of them, well, some of them aren't immune stimulating, so the either is okay. But they all kill candida. The black walnut isn't, I don't think is immune stimulating, but all the rest of them are to some degree. Anyway, you're going to do that 3 times a day for a week. And by the way, just so you know, you probably know this already if you're this far into anything herbal with me, but you probably know that taking herbs on an empty stomach can give you a bellyache, right? So eat something before you take a bunch of tinctures and herbs, or it'll give you a bellyache. Just a note too about the word bergamot, the name bergamot. This is bergamot. This little plant in the picture is Monarda fistulosa. Okay, it's a mint, really a great antifungal for athlete's foot or candida or anything. It's very effective. There's another plant called bergamot, exactly the same name, exactly the same spelling. They make an essential oil out of. And that bergamot is a little citrus fruit from Malaysia or somewhere over in Asia. Completely different plant. Okay. The essential oil bergamot comes from the fruit, the little citrus guy. The antifungal bergamot is Monarda fistulosa. That's a good reason when you're doing a search for something to search using the Latin name, not the English name. Because, there's a dozen plants that people call Indian tobacco. You know what I mean? And so that's why Linnaeus invented taxonomic binomial nomenclature to give Latin names to all the animals and plants, so we would all know what the heck we're talking about and not get mixed up. So Monarda fistulosa is the bergamot we're talking about in this formula. Okay, cleansing heavy metals. And there's 2 ways to do this. One is to take herbs, and the other way is just to go in your kid's room and get the CDs and throw them out the window. Okay, there's 2 ways to do it. Depends which kind of heavy metal you're working on. But we're probably working on the heavy metals that are actually metals. So they can accumulate in the body either through ingestion by eating them, or sometimes even just by touching them. If you handle lead with your fingers enough, it'll soak in and it's bad for you. And so the long-term exposure to heavy metals can be really, really detrimental. A lot of them cause muscular problems and neurologic problems, degenerative neurologic problems. I knew of a guy, I didn't actually know him, but I knew a good friend of his, an old guy, not that old actually, probably my age, but he got severe mental incapacity, dementia, craziness. And the reason he got it was because he was a reloader. He reloaded his own ammunition. And he was casting his own lead bullets to make bullets for his gun. And just was handling lead all the time. And he loved doing it. It was a big hobby and he did it a lot. And he was handling lead all the time. And half the time while he was reloading, he was also eating a sandwich, So he's ingesting lead and he's touching a lot of lead. And they did the testing on him and his lead levels were through the roof and it melted his brain. I mean, he was done. He was a mental invalid for the rest of his life because of the amount of lead he got. Mercury can do the same things. Mercury is really bad for you. the best way to get mercury is to eat big fish, because mercury is very persistent in the tissues. It's not going anywhere. And so as it goes up the food chain, if you eat a trout, it won't have very much mercury in it. But if you eat somebody who ate everybody all the way up, a big tuna or a big marlin or one of the fish that's eating a lot of fish, and he's accumulating everybody's mercury, see? And so people that eat really a lot of large fish, I mean, the fish is physically large, can have high mercury levels sometimes. And then there's cadmium, and there's aluminum, and there's nickel, and there's arsenic, and there's all kinds of ways that people get exposed to stuff. And a lot of it's industrial, a lot of it's mining. Coal miners and stuff get a lot of. My great-grandpa, great-great-grandpa, and my great-grandpa, both of them were coal miners in Wales. And both of them had severe lead poisoning. My great-grandpa had it twice, really severe lead poisoning. And his dad had it really bad, and I think died of it, pretty much from what they described. I was reading his journal about how his dad died, and it sounded to me like a severe lead case. Anyway, coal miners and other miners are exposed to a lot of stuff too, which is sad. Anyway, here's a list of the metals. But so anyway, we just talked about this. If you eat really, really big fish, that's a bad idea if you do it too much. Especially for mercury, large predatory fish, and lead paint chips. When I was a little kid, I had a lead soldier set. Those were the good old days, in the late 60s and early 70s, they were selling lead soldier kits for little kids, and that was fun. And it had a little hot plate that got about 1,000 degrees hot, and a little ladle, and you'd put the lead in it and melt it. That was that hot. And then it had the little molds, and you'd pour the hot lead into the molds and make lead soldiers. And we thought that was great fun. And then you would paint them, and play with them all day. And so that's why my dementia is so bad. Anyway, fortunately, someone came along and said, it may be a bad idea to have little kids making their own lead soldiers. Anyway. And I got burned plenty good a couple of times making them. So it's amazing that any of us live to adulthood, even if you don't make lead soldiers. Okay, so what are we going to do? Well, physicians have a therapy called chelation therapy where they do injections, and that has usually calcium EDTA in it. And what that do is it binds with the heavy metals and helps you excrete them. There's also some oral things you can do, DMSA, which is a long word I can't even remember how to pronounce. It's probably on here. Dimercaptosuccinic acid. So if you have any dimercaptosuccinic acid, you can take that too. Or D-penicillamine, and those are taken orally, and they're also binders to the metals. Okay. And then once they bind, they're excreted through your kidneys. So obviously, you want to avoid getting heavy metals into your diet and in your environment. If you've got lead paint, you want to paint over it with something that's not lead paint. You don't want to eat too many big carnivorous predatory fish, and you don't want to work in a coal mine. Okay. And so that will help decrease exposure. And if you're in a very bad situation, sometimes the medical doctors will do this chelation therapy to help clean you out. We also have an herbal therapy, which is better because it doesn't poke. There's no needle. But if you're in a really serious situation, the chelation is probably not a bad idea. But there are some herbs that also help bind and eliminate leads, heavy metals. Chlorella does, which is actually an algae. Cilantro, which is also good on Mexican food. Garlic, horsetail, and rose hips are the ones that are good at binding lead. And so if you wanted to do, as part of the cleanse, if you wanted to do a heavy metal routine, just because you take that formula 3 times a week, and that would also be great for a lot of other things. It'd be good for your kidneys, so it'd be good for your immune system. There's a lot of good stuff in that formula. So it's not going to hurt you any. All right. And make my buttons work. There we go. Okay, so and that's the last thing we're going to clean. Here is that herbal cleanse kit, just as a shameless commercial announcement. You might as well get one from us rather than trying to build your own. It would be labor intensive and expensive to do that. And like I say, this cleanse, the various steps of this cleanse, and it takes several weeks to do it. A lot of weeks, 7 or 8. I'd have to add it up, but it's a while, a couple of months. And you do it step by step. And there's instructions, and I'm going to send you the instructions. They're on the PDF, okay? But it'll have all the instructions for the order of how to do it. And if you want to do it yourself and make your own, do that. That's great, okay? And if you want to make formulas that are pretty close to these, that'll work too, all right? It doesn't have to be this thing. But this thing is real easy. It's the easy button. So, do we have any questions on there, Evan? Let's see if we got any cleansing questions, and I'll have another slurp of stump water. See what we got going on. Tomorrow is going to be a lot of fun. Tomorrow we're going to do a plant walk. Well, I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to watch it with you. I did it last Friday. So we filmed a plant walk over at Orton Botanical Garden, which is this astounding desert. It's amazing. Anyway, so we'll do the plant walk in the morning, and then in the afternoon, we're going to do respiratory diseases and respiratory herbs. So that's a good one. Okay, so Fun Dog says, can stress cause leaky gut and trigger autoimmune conditions? Absolutely. Stress is one of the big ones. Stress, pharmaceuticals, illness, there's a lot of things. Anxiety, anything that's stressful. See, because stress is bad. We talked about that at the very beginning. Stress is the worst thing in the world. Really so bad. Do things for your stress. And I'll tell you a little secret about stress, shall I? A little herb that's really good for stress, just general stress, is oat straw. Best thing in the world for people that are burning the candle at both ends. It's not sedating. It's not unnerving like Valium Valium. That's a good nerving. I meant to say valerian, which is also a good nerving, and you won't get arrested if you have some. Anyway, oat straw is not a sedative, but it's sort of a nutritive for your nerves. It unfrazzles frazzled nerves is the best way to describe it. And it's just great for you. I mean, you can take it all the time. It won't hurt you. It's the best thing in the world for soccer moms that are just running themselves ragged, going to work and getting the kids to ballet lessons and making dinner and balancing the checkbook. And, it's just, we have too much stress and too much going on. Oat straw is really good for it. All right. Wendy Mott Olson says, how would you recommend we go about learning how to properly cup? Techniques, what to do, what not to do, etc. Well, there is an organization called the International Cupping Society, I think, and that's where I learned how to do it. Really a good program. And we're starting, I've been saying this for years, but we're actually doing it now. We're starting to develop some other schools. We've got the herb school, but I'm a naturopath and I do acupuncture with tuning forks. I do cupping. I do naprapathy. I do all kinds of weird stuff that isn't herbs. And people always want to learn that. And so we're going to start. Jed Adamson, who's a tremendous naturopath here in Twin Falls, and who trained me in a lot of the things I do. He and I and some other practitioners are going to get together and we'll have a cupping class. But in the meantime, that International Cupping Institute is very, very good. I like them a lot. But we'll have also the acupuncture classes. We'll have a lot of things. We're gaining on doing that. I would guess within the next 6 months, we'll have several of those schools up and running and ready to go. Okay. Would you ever suggest using cupping on areas of poison ivy? No, I would not. And the reason is that poison ivy is caused by an oil, and smearing it around with the cups is a really bad idea. Also, I wouldn't do it on skin that was, well, that's not true. I was going to say I wouldn't do it on skin that was having a hard time, but sometimes I do it on skin because it's having a hard time. I probably wouldn't do it on poison ivy. Okay. Fun Dog says, would regular exercise like going on for a walk move lymph? Absolutely. Absolutely. Take the dog and go for a walk. Anything you do that's moving your muscles is moving lymph. Okay. Even if you just sit in your chair and go like this, you're moving lymph. Okay. So that's good. Do you recommend Shanka Piedra for kidney stones? I've never met or used Shanka Piedra, so I don't know. Mrs. Chef Yoda says that we crack her up. I'm glad. Okay. Kelly Jordan says, off subject, but are there any reliable source of research to herbal interaction with pharmaceuticals? Absolutely. There's mountains of it. Okay. And that's another thing we're working on right now. I'm writing that module, herbs and drugs, what to combine, what not to combine. Sometimes herbs don't care about drugs at all and vice versa. Sometimes herbs make the drugs work way better, which could be good or bad. And sometimes herbs and drugs are a catastrophe together. Okay. And so I'm writing that module. But in the meantime, get on Google Scholar and search the Latin name of the plant and the drug you're taking and see if there's anything that comes up. There's a really good book, and I can't remember the name of the book. It's a good book. It's about herbal contraindications and drug interactions. That's probably what it's called. I don't remember, but I occasionally look up a drug in that one. But I use a lot of resources. I have a lot of pharmacology background. I have that book, which is a good book. I have, research papers that I read. So there's been a lot of research. So Google Scholar is a good option. If you send me an email, I'll send you the name of that book. Okay. And if you're in the school, you don't have to worry about it because in about a month, you're going to have that information. Okay. The book's hard to read and contains a lot of medical mumbo jumbo gibberish that most people don't speak very clearly. So I'm going to make it a lot clearer and easier and like that. Okay. Kelly says, wow, didn't know that about bunnies. We had them as kids and they were trained to use a litter box in the house. And they loved mashed potatoes and chocolate chip cookies and gravy. There you go. Well, my guess is they were sneaking into the litter box for a snack once in a while. Okay. Mrs. Chef Yoder says, what's your herb to medium formula to make tinctures? Okay. So what's the ratio you mean? How do you make a tincture? So I always use dry herbs. You don't have to. You can use fresh herbs for some things. Some fresh herbs have too much water and it dilutes it too much and then it's no good and it'll actually spoil on you. I dry everything because that makes my life easier. And if you're not going to dry it, it might be a better idea to use Everclear instead of vodka because Everclear is more concentrated alcohol and it will counteract the dilution effect of the wet plants, okay, the fresh plants. But I dry everything and I use vodka for almost everything. So I do a 1-to-5 ratio by weight. So I do 100 grams, say 100 grams of dry herb and 500 grams of vodka. Okay. And I usually just do 500 cc's of vodka. When the French invented the metric system in an attempt to overthrow civility in modern society, they defined a gram as a cubic centimeter, a cc of water at sea level. I mean, they didn't use the king's foot or thumb or anything to make up that measuring system. It was astounding. Anyway, so a gram is a cubic cc of water. So a cc of water or a cc of vodka is about a gram. And vodka's not water and we're not at sea level and it's a little different, but who cares? Life's too complicated. I do 100 grams of dry herb, 500 grams of vodka in that ratio by weight, or 500 cc's of vodka. It doesn't matter which one. It's not that different. Okay. Would the saltwater flush be a good way to prep for a colonoscopy instead of the nasty stuff the doctor gives you? Well, theoretically and technically, it probably would. But if I was going to spend really a lot of money on a colonoscopy, I would do it the way they said to do it, so they don't have to do it again. Okay, that's what I would do. Fun Dog says, I sip water during the night. Will the water spit test for Candida still work? Probably. It probably would. It's probably better not to sip water during the night on the night you're going to do the test. Nicole says, if you're doing the heavy metal cleanse and I have the powder that I can just mix it in peanut butter and eat it. I've used cilantro for food poisoning. Yeah. Okay, so yeah. So it doesn't matter how you get herbs into your body, right? You can throw the powder in some water, throw the powder in a little juice, put the powder in a capsule, which I don't love for some reasons. Sometimes the herbs are doing things before they get to your intestines, so they shouldn't be in a capsule. You can make a tincture, you can make a tea, you can put it in peanut butter, you can put it on your pizza and eat it. It doesn't matter. Don't bake it. Put it on after the pizza's cooked. Doesn't matter very much how you get the herbs into your body. Okay, so peanut butter is okay. Cilantro's not super tasty, and that's a good one to put in peanut butter. All right, some people like cilantro. Is the aluminum found in antiperspirants or cooking on aluminum pans bad enough to need a cleanse or just to avoid? Well, if you've been using a lot of aluminum like that, I'd probably do the cleanse. There's been some studies linking aluminum cookware to Alzheimer's. So that's why you notice there's no aluminum cookware anywhere anymore. It's all, unless it's coated with, Teflon or something. All right. I've heard that glyphosate, which is Roundup, weakens the tight junctions in the small intestine and can lead to a candida infection. Glyphosate does a lot of bad things. And any kind of chemical toxicity can lead to leaky gut. And any kind of chemical toxicity or pharmaceutical overload can lead to leaky gut and candida problems because it disrupts the bugs. Okay. So just be careful. What makes someone prone to swollen lymph nodes, whether they're sick or not? Where do you do cupping if you regularly feel swollen neck lymph nodes? Okay, well, if I regularly had swollen neck lymph nodes, I would, first of all, do the lymphatic cleanse with some frequency. I would take a lot of cleavers. Cleavers is very, very good for you and doesn't have any bad side effects. I'd take a lot of cleavers. Make that part of your regimen. Or use that formula. I wouldn't use that formula every day all the time because there's other guys in there that are too strong for that. But you can sure as heck do cleavers every day for a long time. If I was going to cup, I probably wouldn't cup right on the node, but I would cup near it and pull away. Okay. But mostly I would use that formula for a node that was plugged up. And again, if it's a node that comes and goes, that's probably an obstructive thing, maybe drinking more water, maybe moving the lymph more with dry brushing and moving around more, exercising, getting on a vibration machine or a mini tramp, or just walking the dog a lot more. Those kinds of things to get lymph moving, that might help. The formula certainly would help. Cleavers alone certainly would help. If you have lymph nodes that get big and stay big and nothing helps, go to the doctor and make sure it's not something worse. Okay. All right. So is that all the questions? Are we out of questions? What time is it? 5:50. All right. That's pretty good. So, all right. Thanks so much for coming. We're delighted to have been able to share this stuff with you and answer questions and interact. I just really appreciate you guys. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking up the baton and doing this work. It's super important. It's super important. It's super important for you to teach your kids how to do it and for you to teach your grandkids how to do it. And if there's some teenager in your neighborhood that wants to learn how to do it, teach them how to do it. We've got to not be the generation that drops the ball and loses all this knowledge, and be willing to dig in a little bit and be willing to learn a little deeper than cut and paste blog nonsense. Get on Google Scholar and really learn something. enroll in the school and get some really deeper understanding of what's happening and how it works and why it works, because you'll be a better healer. If you really understand how the body works and you really understand what the herb's doing, you can figure out all kinds of stuff. You don't need me to tell you what to take for this. And you don't have to memorize a list of 100 herbs and the 10 things each of them does. It's not a recipe book. It's an interactive understanding of the systems. And if you can accomplish that, you can do remarkable things with healing. You'll know the answers. You'll understand the principles, and you'll be able to, I come up with stuff all the time, what to do for this problem, when I've never dealt with that problem before, because I understand the anatomy and physiology, and I understand the plants and what they're doing. And so it's just easy. It's, oh, that guy would be great for that, you know? So learn the principles, and everything else will take care of itself. So we would love to have you engage in the school if you're already enrolled. Really get in there and dig in. Have some fun learning some things. Do some experimenting, do some treating, and do some work with people. You know, start at a level you're comfortable with and work your way up, and pretty soon you'll be doing some really great work. If you're not in the school, why not? Sign up. You know, there's probably 50 or 75 lessons just like this one we just did in the school that are all included in the school, including everything else I ever do that's herbal is going into that school, and you'll have access to it forever. And so it's a great resource. It's a great opportunity. And I just think, and it's absurdly inexpensive. Most schools with this level of stuff are $3,000 to $5,000. Okay. Well, how come I'm not charging $5,000? Well, because I'd rather make really a lot of herbalists than really a lot of money. And actually, I'm making the same amount of money, right? I'm just teaching more people how to do it. So that's our purpose, is to get the knowledge out there and get the information out there so that people, because you know what? Modern medicine is not always the best solution. Sometimes it is. You know, if you got a brain tumor, make good friends with the guy that can whittle a brain tumor out of your head with a knife. That's a good idea. But for so many of the other things, you know, we raised 15 kids. We had 11 adoptions and 4 homemade kids. And I think I took 2 kids to the doctor in 30 years. One was he had some seizures that I didn't like, and he never had them again. I never did figure out why. And the other kid had blisters all over all of a sudden, and he was from Haiti, and I thought maybe he had some fun, exciting vesicular disease, and it turned out it'd just be the cold sore virus. So I wasted my money twice. Taking kids to the doctor, but it's a good idea. Better safe than sorry on the weird stuff. But anyway, like I've said, they've saved my life a couple of times, and I got nothing but good to say about them as individuals and as people who want to heal and bless others, but the system's kind of broken. So, and some of the tools they have are lousy for some things. You know, some things, herbs are a vastly better tool. And so it's good to have more than one option. And it's especially nice if one of the options growing in your backyard and doesn't cost you any money. I was just chatting here with the red clover, and lo and behold, I found this other rascal cleaving to it. This is cleavers, and they call it cleavers because it cleaves to you. So it's the cleaving like I love you, not the cleaving like, you know, Freddy with the axe murderer chasing with a cleaver. Anyway, cleavers, gallium aperine. Oh, and he's cleaving to some flickweed, which is not cleavers. Go away. Anyway, this is the plant. It has a square stem, and the leaves come off radially. So they come off in a circle, as you can see here. And as its life comes to an end here in the middle of June or so, it flowers and seeds and dies. It's an annual plant, but it'll self-seed all over your gardens, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful herb. And you can see how it just wants to stick to everything, you know. Just got little Velcro hooks all over it. But anyway, this is a very common weed and a wonderful medicinal plant. It's a pretty good diuretic, so you can use it for bladder infections and things of that nature. But the thing I like it for really a lot is for lymphatic drainage. There aren't a lot of plants that are lymphatic drainers, you know. And so you can use this plant internally for swollen lymph nodes. You know, when you get sick and your lymph nodes get all big and sore, this really will help those to drain.
Now it's cleaving to itself. Anyway, it's also pretty good for burns. You can make a tea out of it and soak burns. That's comforting and helps them heal faster. What else? Oh, and it's a liver restorative. I'll be darned. A liver restorative. Now, not a liver tonic, but a liver tonic is an herb that makes the liver do what it does. Like barberry and Oregon grape and burdock. Those guys make the liver make more bile and flush itself out. Liver restoratives heal and restore and protect the liver. And there aren't very many of those. And cleavers is quite a good one. Another good one is milk thistle. But yeah, cleavers is a good liver restorative. So certainly, cases of jaundice or hepatitis or things like that, people that are on a lot of medications, people that are on chemotherapy, those kinds of issues that might be beating the liver up a little bit, cleavers is just great for. It also makes really fantastic camouflage, So this is burdock, Arctium lapa. And burdock's a wonderful plant. It's a biennial. And so that means that the first year, it has a sort of a low leafy rosette on the ground. And then the second year, it bolts up and flowers and seeds and dies. So it's a 2-year cycle. This is a second-year plant. This is not the one you want, okay? This plant, the root is the medicine. And so the roots on this guy are kind of tapped out. He knows he's going to die. He's putting all his resources upstairs. So you don't want the roots of this guy, but this is the one you look for because he's easy to find. And then you look around his feet and you find the first year plants, right? And so because it's a biennial and the root's the medicine, it's the timing of harvesting that root's a little bit important. So you want to harvest that root, obviously, when it's as big as possible, but you also want to harvest it before the plant bolts up and, stops caring about its roots. And so either the fall of the first year, or better yet, the early spring of the second year is when you're going to get the biggest, best roots. So what are the properties? Well, this is an amazing plant. It's one of those plants that if you look in an herb book, there's a whole long list of things that it does. It's, they use it for cancer, they use it for jaundice, they use it for bladder infections, they use it for arthritis, they use it for psoriasis and eczema. Well, how's it doing all those things? Well, really, burdock is a pretty simple plant physiologically. What it really is doing is it's a kidney tonic and it's a liver tonic, okay? So it's a diuretic, it's making you pee more, and it's a cholagogue, that's the fancy herbalist word for a liver tonic, which means it's making your liver produce more bile and flush itself out, okay? So, well, that makes sense for the bladder infections and the kidney stuff, right? Because it's making you pee more. That's how you get rid of bladder infections and kidney stuff. And the jaundice makes sense because, it's making the bile flow better and flushing the liver out, and so it's good for jaundice. That makes sense from a liver and kidney tonic. But what about the arthritis? How does it help arthritis? It has no pain-killing properties. It has no anti-inflammatory properties. So what's it doing? Well, what it's doing is it's making your liver and kidneys work better so that they're eliminating toxins from your blood, which would otherwise precipitate into your joints and cause inflammation, all right? So if your liver and kidneys are happy, your joints are happy, all right? That's how that works. Well, what about cancer? Well, again, it doesn't have any cancer-fighting chemicals in it that kill cancer cells. But what it does is it frees up resources. It cleans the body and it cleans the blood, and that just lets everything in your body work better, right? There's only so many guys in your body that are doing stuff, and if they're all shoveling garbage out of your liver, they're not fighting cancer. You know what I mean? And so it just frees up resources. It cleans the body. It makes the whole environment healthier. It oxygenates the body because, blood is flowing better and blood is cleaner. Cancer doesn't like oxygen, so all those things are beneficial. What about eczema and psoriasis? Again, there's no antibiotics in burdock. There's no anti-inflammatories. So, that's kind of what you need for, if you're a doctor anyway, that's what they give you for eczema and psoriasis. Well, eczema and psoriasis really, typically, is a liver problem. If you got bad skin, it's because you got a grumpy liver, all right? So what happens is that the liver gets overloaded with toxins and, food coloring and preservatives and all the garbage we eat that isn't food. And it just gets overwhelmed, and it doesn't have the resources to do everything it needs to do. And so your body says, well, heck, we got all these other things we got to get rid of. Let's get rid of them through the skin, right? She's got glands, we'll make her do it. And so your skin then becomes your second liver, right? And you get eczema and psoriasis. And so the treatment for that is not to treat the skin so much, but to make the liver happy. And if we do that, if we use herbs like burdock particularly, that really does clean up the liver. And 9 times out of 10, That's the most important thing you can do for an eczema or psoriasis case. So burdock, Arctium lapa, the root's the principal medicine on it. The other parts are medicinal too, but they're not that great, and I just don't use them. I use the root. But Arctium lapa. Hi, Dr. Patrick Jones here from the Homegrown Herbalist School of Botanical Medicine. And I'm sitting here with the milk thistle, not wanting to get too close because he's kind of a pokey rascal, but this is milk thistle, Silybum marinum, which is really fun to say, Silybum marinum. And it's a wonderful plant, really a great medicinal. The seed is the medicine. And so you have to wait until it flowers and goes to seed. And it's a little bit of an adventure to get those seeds out. You have to cut these heads off, and it involves leather gloves and pliers, and it's just kind of a pokey rascal. But the way I do it is I cut the heads off, and then I get a butter knife and I scrape the seeds out of there. You wait until it gets, fluffy and dry, it's sort of like a dandelion head, where you get the fluff and the seeds blow everywhere. That's when you want to harvest them, preferably before they blow everywhere, or you get a fellow like this. This is not a plant that I planted. He's a volunteer. I think I was winnowing some seed way over there a couple of years ago, and he got away. So anyway, the seed's the medicine. The plant is very distinctive in appearance. The leaves have this beautiful milky streaking on them. I don't know if you can see that. I'll get a picture close up of it. But really attractive in a very spiny, pokey kind of way. The flowers are beautiful. Really a neat plant to look at. Not so much fun to touch. But like I said, the seed's the medicine. And it's really a remarkable plant for the liver. That's the principal use. It has some other uses too. It has some activity against giardia, for example. But mostly people use it as a liver restorative. Now that's different than a liver tonic, or a cholagogue is what the old funky herbalist word is for liver tonics. A liver tonic or a cholagogue is an herb that stimulates the liver to do what the liver does, which is to produce more bile and flush itself out. So plants like burdock, dandelion root, Oregon grape, barberry, those are sort of classical cholagogues, and they stimulate the liver to function. Milk thistle has a little bit of that activity, but its primary activity is as a liver restorative. And so what milk thistle does is it heals the liver, and it also is a liver protective. And so the liver is an organ that's a little unique in the body because it can really regenerate and restore. I mean, you can about grow yourself a new liver, as long as it's not cirrhosis. The liver is very capable of healing and regenerating. And milk thistle stimulates and promotes and supports that process. It also is a terrific liver protectant. It protects the liver from toxins and poisons that would otherwise damage the liver. And it's very powerful in that way. So, for example, they did a study on mice where they fed the mice. They took two groups. There was a control group and an experiment group. And I don't know if they were volunteer mice or not. It was all a little fuzzy on that. But anyway, for breakfast, they gave the experiment group, they gave them milk thistle seeds, and the other guys got, mouse chow or whatever they feed mice. And then for lunch, they gave them all death cap mushrooms. And death cap mushrooms are like the most toxic thing in the world. And the guys that had mouse food for breakfast fell over dead immediately. I mean, it's extraordinarily toxic, deadly stuff. And the guys that had the milk thistle seed for breakfast said, "Have you got any more of that mushroom sauce for our milk thistle seed?" I didn't hurt them at all. There was no toxicity. There was no fatality in that group. So the milk thistle seed had protected them from this, extraordinarily deadly poison. And it protects the liver from other things as well. It's a wonderful liver protectant. And so, when do I use it? Well, I use it for anybody with any kind of a liver issue, obviously. Jaundice, hepatitis, those kinds of things. But I also use it for people that are stressing their livers. People that are on a lot of pharmaceuticals, people that have had chemotherapy, people that, the liver is kind of on the ropes. Those kinds of people really benefit from milk thistle. So milk thistle, remember, the seed's the medicine, and really a beautiful plant. It's a little bit knotty, so it's, it may or may not be one you want to plant in your yard, because if you don't get those seed heads off before they go, you'll have a lot of it everywhere. But it's beautiful. We have it, here and there on our place, so we just enjoy it and harvest it, and are glad to have it. But anyway, this is Dr. Patrick Jones from the Homegrown Herbalist School of Botanical Medicine, and thanks for listening.